Hi everyone, it's been 9 o'clock already, so I think we should start. Okay, good morning ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2025 Annual Academic Conference of Health System Research Institute or HSRI. In the topic of SNOMED CT, a pillar of Thai health system innovation. This one is organized by the Thai Health Information Standards Development Center or THIS. This is Ms. Piyaporn Kantade and I am Untitled Chapter. It's a great honor to serve you as your MC today. Some of us have met yesterday, and it's been a great honor to welcome our speakers from SNOMED International to present at this conference. Just a bit of an overview of today's agenda. We will have two sessions. The first one is the introduction of SNOMED CT, and the second one will be the SNOMED CT Showcase.
สวัสดีค่ะแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านนะคะยินดีต้อนรับเข้าสู่การประชุมวิชาการระบบวิจัยสาธารณสุขประจำปี 2568 นะคะโดยในหัวข้อมาตรฐานข้อมูล SNOMED CT ฐานรากของนวัตกรรมการพัฒนาระบบสุขภาพไทยโดยสำนักพัฒนามาตรฐานข้อมูลสุขภาพไทยหรือสมสท.ค่ะดิฉันนางสาวปิยพรกันธาเดชและคุณอินทัชเหล่าบัณฑิตมีความยินดีเป็นอย่างยิ่งที่ได้รับเกียรติให้ทำหน้าที่พิธีกรในวันนี้โดยลำดับแรกนะคะดิฉันจะขอเรียนเชิญนายแพทย์บุญชัยกฤษณโยธินท่านเป็นผู้เชี่ยวชาญด้านระบบสุขภาพดิจิทัลและมาตรฐานข้อมูลสุขภาพนะคะในการกล่าวเปิดงานและก็แนะนำวิทยากรจาก SNOMED International นะคะค่ะขอเรียนเชิญค่ะ
ฮัลโหลครับสวัสดีครับสวัสดีอีกวันหนึ่งจริงๆเราเจอกันเมื่อวานนี้บางท่านหลายท่านนะครับเจอกันเมื่อวานผมหมอบุญชัยกฤษณโยธินนะครับผมไม่ใช่ผู้อำนวยการสำนักสมสท.ผมเป็นผู้เชี่ยวชาญผมเกษียณแล้วนะครับก็เปิดนิดหน่อยนะครับก็ต้องขอบคุณมากที่มาร่วมประชุมในวันนี้นะครับเราได้มีโอกาสนะครับได้ผู้เชี่ยวชาญจาก SNOMED International เนี่ยมาเล่าให้ฟังเกี่ยวกับเรื่องมาตรฐานข้อมูล SNOMED CT ซึ่งเดี๋ยวท่านก็จะเห็นนะครับอยากให้ทุกท่านได้มีโอกาสถามนะครับเรามี simultaneous translation ถามเป็นภาษาไทยก็ได้ครับเพราะว่าเขาก็ฟังเขาก็จะได้คำแปลอยู่แล้วนะครับแล้วเราก็จะได้เข้าใจมากขึ้นนะครับจริงๆเนี่ยเซสชันจะมีอยู่ทั้งวันนะครับแต่เผอิญเราแบ่งออกเป็น2ช่วงเพราะว่าตอนบ่ายเนี่ยจะเชิญทุกท่านเข้าร่วมประชุมของสวรสนะครับประชุมประจำปีของสวรสเพราะฉะนั้นในครึ่งเช้าเนี่ยก็จะมีแนะนำ SNOMED CT แล้วก็มีเล่าให้ฟังว่าเอาไปใช้ประโยชน์ยังไงนะครับแล้วก็เราจะมีเชิญประเทศ 2-3 ประเทศที่เขา implement SNOMED CT เนี่ยมาเล่าให้ฟังว่าเป็นแบบไหนนะครับแล้วก็พรุ่งนี้ก็จะเป็นการประชุมทั้งวันนะครับตอนบ่ายก็จะช่วงเช้าของวันพรุ่งนี้เนี่ยก็จะลงลึกลงไปเกี่ยวกับ SNOMED CT นะครับแล้วก็ช่วงบ่ายผมไม่อยากให้พลาดนะครับเพราะว่าเราเชิญหน่วยงานในประเทศไทยหลายหน่วยนะครับมาเล่าให้ฟังถึงการ implement SNOMED CT ใน EMR ในโรงพยาบาลมีปัญหาแบบไหนทำกันยังไงบ้างนะครับแล้วก็ท่านก็จะได้เห็นแล้วก็ได้มีโอกาสสอบถามนะครับก็ก่อนอื่นผมขอแนะนำวิทยากรนะครับเรา เนื่องจากประเทศไทยเป็นสมาชิกของ SNOMED CT เนี่ยเมื่อปี 2505 ช่วงโควิดนะครับ2,500 ตอนนี้ 58 ใช่ไหมครับเมื่อ 2-3 ปีก่อนนะ57 มั้งครับ56 นะครับก็ ไม่มีโอกาสที่จะได้ทางฝั่ง SNOMED International ไม่มีโอกาสที่จะมาเยี่ยมเราแล้วก็ให้ความรู้เรานะครับก็หลังจากโควิดเราก็มีโอกาสเชิญผู้เชี่ยวชาญมานะครับวันนี้มีผู้เชี่ยวชาญจาก SNOMED International มา4ท่านนะครับท่านแรกก็คือดร. แอนแรนดอร์ฟโฮเกนนะครับท่านเป็น biomedical engineer อยู่ที่เดนมาร์กนะครับแล้วตอนนี้ก็เป็น implementation support specialist นะครับท่านทำงานกับหน่วยงาน SNOMED International ครับท่านที่2ก็ดร. Alejandro López Osornio นะครับก็เป็นท่านเป็นแพทย์จากอาร์เจนตินาแล้วก็ท่านเป็นผู้ที่ช่วยทำให้ประเทศอาร์เจนตินา implement SNOMED CT นะครับแล้วก็มีประสบการณ์เกี่ยวกับเรื่อง implementation อย่างมากเลยครับงั้นคนที่เป็นหมอแล้วก็สนใจถามได้ในทุกแง่มุมนะครับเพราะว่าดร. Alejandro เนี่ยมีประสบการณ์มากนะครับอีก2ท่านก็คือคายเคลลี่นะครับคายเนี่ยมาจากอังกฤษนะครับคายเป็นผู้เชี่ยวชาญทางด้านเทคนิคในการ implement technical implement SNOMED CT terminology service แล้วก็ service ต่างๆที่ทาง SNOMED International มีให้นะครับท่านสุดท้ายไลล่าทูทีน่าเนี่ยก็เป็นเพื่อนกับพวกเรามาเป็น10 ปีนะครับทำงานร่วมกันแล้วก็เป็นคนแนะนำแล้วก็สนับสนุนให้ประเทศต่างๆเนี่ยเป็นใช้ SNOMED CT นะครับ so without any further introduction I think you already heard about what I introduced you so I will invited you to come and give us the presentation thank you
I would like to thank you for welcoming us in this beautiful country. Bangkok is a wonderful city and we're very appreciative for you to host us. We would like to spend this morning with you to share some of the high importance aspects of SNOMED CT that will really give you background on how you can benefit from it. So let's start a little bit with what is SNOMED. So SNOMED is the largest world's clinical terminology that is multilingual. What that actually means is that you can translate the English International Edition of SNOMED into Thai language equally. We have other member countries that are currently translating, so that enables you to adopt it for local use. It is very comprehensive, it's scientifically validated, and it is constantly updated to reflect the latest medical knowledge. It also enables a consistent use of clinical data in electronic health records, which means that you can not only record it, but you can exchange it and also analyze the data and utilize
Recording in progress.
The utility of clinical knowledge across the whole of the system. SNOMED CT is also linked through maps to other clinical standards and classifications. There are a large number of collaboration partners we have, but here to just mention a few, we have maps to ICD-10 and MEDRA and GDMP and LOINC and ICNF. But there are numerous others that we will mention later on today. And finally, just wanted to say that membership is one of the best ways how countries can utilize SNOMED, but it also is open to any user across the globe through an affiliate license, which enables any person, any organization, anybody to use SNOMED. And currently it is used in over 80 countries across the globe. So as an organization, we're an international non-for-profit organization represented by its member countries. Our vision is that by 2030, clinical terminologies will be used globally, which will result in better health and improve patient outcomes, supported by one language of health. Our mission is for SNOMED International to sustainably produce a global healthcare vocabulary and services that enables the clear exchange and analysis of health information for everyone. So how do we create SNOMED CT? As I mentioned, it's one of the largest multilingual global terminologies. The principles that guide development of the clinical terminology, such as SNOMED, involve various technical design aspects as well as editorial. It is very inclusive in terms of its process. We have both internal editorial guidelines that guide how SNOMED CT is developed, as well as it provides community inclusion for input and review processes. We also use machine-readable concept models to ensure that the quality of SNOMED is utmost standard at any point in time. We also have peer review opportunities for both community of practice of domain experts as well as internal processes that we utilize to ensure that every release is meeting our quality standards. In terms of improvement, as you know, medicine is moving at a very rapid pace. So we always aim at improving the quality in terms of technology, as well as the processes that we utilize to ensure that SNOMED CT adheres to it. And finally, I just wanted to mention that we're also trying to do all we can as an organization centrally, working through our national release centers, such as Dr. Bunchai's organization and others, to remove the barriers for use of SNOMED CT in member countries as well as globally. We support our user community through open source tooling that is available for use to any vendors, any users, any implementers at no cost whatsoever. We also provide guidance and advice to our member countries, but also to any user in the world. I would just want to mention right here in the beginning, I promise you I'm not touching it, that we also deliver online, free of charge, education for SNOMED CT. So if anybody here in this audience or anybody online would like to learn a little bit more about SNOMED CT, we have a free foundation course that would enable you to learn a little bit more about it, and with that to facilitate adoption. But also, we'll talk about it a little bit more later. However, there's just some entertainment going in the background, so focus on maybe what I'm saying. What I wanted to say is that you have available to you also a large source of resources to learn more about SNOMED, and it's all free. That's one way how we can remove barriers to utilize it better. When we get to the slide, once the show is finished, you may see that currently our membership is constituted by 51 member countries. Most recently, we had Mongolia join just a few weeks ago, but our distribution of membership is global. So in this region, we have numerous countries, and Thailand, as Dr. Bunchai mentioned, joined just before COVID. So we have this great opportunity to finally be here and share our experience. And the global usage is expanding, but beyond our member countries, it's used also in non-member countries all over the world. I think at this point, I will pass it on to Anna to talk a little bit more about other interesting aspects.
If you find that the slides are changing, we could unplug that.
Okay. Hi, everybody. And thank you, Dr. Bunchai, for that warm welcome. And to those of you who were here yesterday, hi again. And to new audience, very nice to meet you. So I'm excited about this, but I'm also a bit scared if my slides are going to dance over the next hour. So let's see what's going on here. Okay, so for those of you who were here yesterday, there will be some repetition, but there will also be new perspectives. The objective of this talk now is to talk about why clinical terminology matters at all, regardless of it being SNOMED or other terminologies. Why does structured clinical terminology matters? And in that talk, I will also talk about why SNOMED CT really is a good resource as a structured clinical terminology. So, you have heard about our vision and our mission to improve health and care, and the way that we can do that is to make clinical data interoperable, meaningful, and actionable. I'm going to talk through those three aspects. So what do we mean when we say that clinical data should be interoperable, meaningful, and actionable? And I'll talk about why SNOMED CT supports those aspects. So, interoperability. When clinical data is captured all around the globe, in different hospitals, different organizations, different clinicians, health professionals capture data in their systems that have been designed throughout a number of years and established to support the clinical workflow. So an immense amount of data is captured in these health records by these clinical professionals who all have the overarching objective to deliver the best possible care and treatment and the service and continuously make enhancements. And the way that they can do that, a prerequisite for achieving that, is to make sure that the information they require to deliver the best care and treatment is that the information is available and understandable to both the humans but also the machines, because the machines become more and more an aid that we use throughout the clinical health. So this example, you also saw that yesterday, but this really emphasizes the need of a global clinical language. So imagine that you have patients at different hospitals being admitted to the hospitals with any disorder, in fact. But in this example, we are talking about an intravertebral disc prolapse. So that's not very pleasant, but it happens. So patients are admitted to hospitals with the same disorder. But in these systems, that information is displayed in the user interfaces of the systems in various ways. Some systems will use IVDP, others use slip disc, third system would maybe type prolapsed intravertebral disc. So there are different names and terms that we would use to capture this incidence of the intravertebral disc prolapse. We're talking about the same thing, but we are using different phrases. In these systems, while implementing these systems, the local organization and implementation teams may have established local codes or used some specific code system to represent this intravertebral disc prolapse. So as you can see here, which is just an illustration, in one system they may have BA00, another system may use M51.2, different codes, because that is what has been designed and established during their development process. It may also be that there are some established code system to support this. Irrespective, these systems don't speak the same language. And you can argue that they don't use the same alphabet. So they are, with the best intention, capturing data, maybe even structured, and having their own way of doing this, but they are not harmonized. And why is that a problem? The problem will occur when we start to use the data afterwards. So imagine that you have a clinical data analyst who wants to understand how many people in a country who had an intravertebral disc prolapse this year. So in order to understand that for an entire country or a set of organizations, you would then need to go into their health records and identify how many incidences of this intravertebral disc prolapse that exist. And when you're using different codes, it requires each of the organizations to go in and identify the right codes that match this criteria. And that can be a manual effort, but it may also be that each individual organization has means to do that. But still, you need to ensure that you know what codes to use. So you need people who understand the data and understand the health record. And we also have that concern then, can we be sure that we included everything? Another case would be if you are not just wanting to know how many people had the intravertebral disc prolapse, if you also want to know any kind of back injury. So in that case, in order to know that, you don't just have to know the code for the intravertebral disc prolapse, you need to know all the different disorders that you have recorded that are back injuries, excluding things that are heart disorders or other disorders, respiratory disorders. You only want those that are back injuries. So that requires each of the organizations to have effective ways to retrieve those specific disorders. So you can see how, now it starts, Liara. I'll leave it there. I'll use my laptop instead. So in that case, you need to include all the codes for all types of back injuries in all systems. And again, if that requires, compared to one disorder, think about all the different back injuries. That would be some audit to do to identify all those. And the same concern as before, can you be sure that you included everything? And I'm not touching it. I need help from Kai. Okay. Just do it. Okay. Okay. I'll do it. This will also be an excellent exercise for me because I normally walk around when I talk, as you can already see. So now I have to stand still so that I can press. So you'll see if I can manage that. Okay, so where were we? A third example of why this situation can be quite challenging. So imagine the situation that you have a patient that has been admitted to one hospital with this intervertebral disc prolapse, and now the person is transmitted to another hospital. In this hospital where he was admitted, they use this PID_001 IVDP because in that system that really makes sense, and in that organization that abbreviation makes sense. And now this patient is being transferred to a different hospital with that code. Well, the other system, the receiving system, doesn't know that code. And maybe the clinicians there, IVDP, they are not using that term. They use the clinical, more close to the clinical language, prolapsed intervertebral disc term. They may know that IVDP is the same, probably they do, but it may also be that there are other things in the healthcare domain that has the abbreviation of IVDP. But the essence is that the computer is not able to process and use that code and that information. So, I hope this clarifies that there are different cases where you really would like some help from the data and from the clinical systems to make these questions, which seems fairly easy. How many had a certain disorder? How many had a specific type of disorders? How can I shift patients from one organization to the other or one hospital to the other? It's fairly things that we want to be able to answer, and it should be easy. But in this case, it's not very easy, and the means to make it more easy is to start to think about standardization. Like, imagine that we had to have a different plug for every hospital we went to in order to get electricity. It would be horrible, right? It's the same for our data. We can require that we harmonize our data to make life easy for those using the data. And SNOMED CT is one of those standards because it's a common language for health. We really want the systems to speak and talk and use the same vocabulary. So a common language for health. And in the principles of such common language is that we focus on the clinical meanings, the ideas, everything that we would want to record. So the intervertebral disc, the meaning of an intervertebral disc, we assign that a code, and then we allow the organizations to define terms in whatever language and whatever preferences they have, as long as they are synonymous to the clinical meaning that they are trying to represent. So this is the essence of SNOMED CT when providing thank you, that worked yesterday. Good. I'll just try. Mm-hmm. It's all right. I can. Yeah, I'll just. What are you looking for? The preferences? Yeah. Is it working? Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Yeah. All right. This is a good example of standardization, right? That now we could just take another one, different brand, different thing, plug it in, it works. Woohoo! So it really underpins what I'm talking about here, standardization. We need it. Good. SNOMED CT is a common language for health, and these slides really illustrate the principles of SNOMED CT. Concepts, clinical meanings, those are the key of what SNOMED CT is. We assign it a unique code so that each hospital uses the same code, and we allow countries, organizations, hospitals to create the terms that they want to use. There is, and in the international edition, we have terms in English. So there are, like the international edition, which is available to anyone to get started, will have terms in English. I come from Denmark. There we have a Danish edition, which includes all the same content as the international edition, but there are also Danish terms, so Danish clinicians can see the Danish terms. So that is really what makes it a multilingual terminology, is that the core and the essence is international and standardized, but the terms and the way that we articulate things can be altered and tailored to whatever preferences we have. And SNOMED CT is a terminology which is a common language for any stakeholders. We often say that SNOMED CT is designed for clinicians because it has the focus of the clinical meanings at the core of its heart. But SNOMED CT is also a terminology for hospital administrators, information analysts, researchers, software developers, because it's designed so that it's easy to implement. So there are many stakeholders, all the stakeholders that are involved with creating, developing, and using clinical data. So let's look a bit on the requirements for these stakeholders. So a clinician whose focus is to deliver the best care and treatment, as I said before, they really want to record clinical data using a clinical focused language. So some organizations, when they start to use codes, they start to think in codes instead of really focusing on what is the clinical language. Maybe they already have billing, reimbursement, quality assurance in mind, but honestly, in order to ensure quality, data quality, if we can have accurate and meaningful, consistent representations that is as close to the clinical scenario as possible, that will really increase the quality of the data. Another requirement for clinicians is that they need and want the right data to be available at the right time and the right place. So it should be easy, fast, and convenient to access the data. The computers shouldn't be something that is a barrier to perform the services. It should actually help. They want the documentation process to be fast and easy, right? We would really like it to just automatically make the accurate thing without us having to do as much as possible, right? Because we want to spend the time with the patients and on the core of the services. And the clinical information systems and the data should support the clinical research and decision making. Of course, we always want to improve the services. We want to create evidence that what we do is the right thing and that we can improve in where it's possible to improve. So of course, the data should also support those purposes. When a patient goes through a clinical encounter set and a clinical journey, you can use SNOMED CT throughout that journey, irrespective of what kind of clinician you are. So from the emergency room to the laboratory, through the medical care and treatment process, in surgery, rehabilitation, SNOMED CT cover all the information that is required there. often when we talk about standardizing and using code systems, we are focusing only on disorders, only on drugs, only on procedures. But in SNOMED, we try to encompass everything that is important to be captured by any health professional in and around the health record. And that is also why what Liara said, that SNOMED CT is comprehensive. It's the world's most comprehensive multilingual clinical terminology. And that's because we want to create a standard that actually covers all the purposes and all the needs. Because having one resource is a lot easier to manage once you have established the processes than having to use 10. So clinicians use clinical terms to capture information in health records. And that's why these terms that I'm talking about, that you can add synonyms in whatever language and dialect, is also a key feature of SNOMED. So SNOMED is used in a clinical system, and the success of SNOMED CT really depends on how well it's integrated into those systems and how well user interfaces are designed. SNOMED CT is not the language police, nor do we dictate how the systems are designed. It's a resource, it's a building block that we use to create user interfaces and data entry forms in a way that is useful for the clinical situation. And what you notice here is that they use the terms, they don't use the codes. So behind the scenes of this is a clinical terminology, but the clinicians doesn't really have to know. They just need to make sure that the things that they see actually corresponds to the real situation, the real life. Let's look at the requirements for a hospital administrator. Of course, they are also interested in delivering the best care and treatment that the clinicians are doing, but they are focusing also to make sure that the service that are delivered within that hospital, that they are delivered, they are recorded, and they are reimbursed. So that's an overarching objective for an hospital administrator, to have an overview of the things that are going on and making sure that the reimbursements happens. One means to ensure that everything is reimbursed is that we keep track of the things that are performed. They also have an interest in minimizing data redundancy, so that you don't have, the same clinician doesn't have to record the same information in 10 places, because that's not very effective. And also that data that is collected once can then be used many places. So if all those different stakeholders that I spoke about before, they all have different needs for data. So of course, data collected at the point of care should be able to be harvested for all the other different stakeholders and purposes. So this illustrates that point, that in a clinical record, you may have data recorded about the patient history, tests and investigations, diagnosis, procedures, medication, other things as well. The clinicians make that documentation. When you use SNOMED behind the scenes, this information is recorded within one single terminology, which means that you can see SNOMED CT is the thing in the middle here, where each node represents a certain clinical meaning. And if we use one code systems, it's very easy to then start to grab groups of things from the terminology, using the hierarchies and using the relationships in this terminology. And for a hospital administrator, this will make it easier to say, okay, grab everything that is a back injury, or grab all the procedures that have been performed that are laboratory procedures, and grouping them and make that a point of departure for creating the reimbursement, maybe linked to the proper DRG groups or whatever way you reimburse. The same goes for insurance companies or other companies where you have to group things. So information analyst, the case here is quite similar, right? But for an information analyst or a researcher, they need a standardized way to collate data about diseases and mortality in a country. They want to perform the analysis to provide insights on the health state of the population. It's not only people in the hospitals that we care about their health, right? we also want to be able to track what's going on within a population, to be able to do the population monitoring, the trends in a country, and to be able to make more policy decisions on things that relates to our health, so that we can improve and prevent disorders from happening within a population. But also statistical information about frequency of certain diseases in order to understand where do we really have to set in and understand what we can do and what the critical areas within a population are. And this scenario is quite similar to the one we saw before. Again, information can be collected in different organizations. And if we use the same code systems, it's a lot easier to then gather this information in a register, some kind of register. And then use SNOMED CT's features for analysis, and you'll learn more about that tomorrow. SNOMED CT is a very powerful resource when it comes to analytics. It's a claim, but I'm sure we can convince you over the next few days that the relationships in SNOMED CT can will really function as a powerful resource for analysis. And also, I've said here, selective and explorative analysis. It will help us discover new patterns in data. But often organizations will use other code systems for reimbursements, for statistics, and we also provide the mechanisms so that we can link to other code systems. And that will, think about it, all the clinical data is captured with SNOMED CT. It's very granular. There's no limit to how granular SNOMED CT can be with clinical concepts. So all the concepts in SNOMED CT can really represent a piece of information that you would want to collect. But when you use statistical classifications, you may want to have more broader classes, and we'll talk more about that later. And the mapping feature allows us to also harvest the benefits of statistical classifications so that you can do the statistical analysis of data or report to registers that require use of a certain code system for that purpose. So the clinical detail will lie in SNOMED, and other code systems may have been designed for other purposes, and we therefore have a very strong mechanism to support the mapping. Finally, researchers, they want to be able to identify clinical trial candidates. They want to be able to collate and analyze data similar to what we just saw before, and need to be able to selectively query data to be able to identify potential important patterns in data. Just a word on what I mean when I say selectively, and we spoke about that a lot yesterday as well. So we don't always know what questions we're going to want to ask tomorrow, but tomorrow I may want to say, well, I have this pile of data. Please give me anything that is a respiratory disorder, but not those disorders that affects the, what could it be, that are asthmatic disorders, for example. So you can very selectively define criteria for the data you want to retrieve. It could also be, oh, I want all imaging procedures, but I don't want the X-rays procedures. And SNOMED CT comes with a language, a computable language, so that it's very easy to define these queries. And think about the first slide with all the organizations. If we were using this different code systems to capture this information, it would be so difficult to then start to gather information in one resource, and so that we can perform analysis. So for researchers, it will often be something about gathering information from different hospitals and provide some research data store. And then you can, as this illustrate, the green, the blue, the orange patients will be represented by the same coding system that will allow researchers to have a larger population to analyze. For example, rare diseases. Well, we don't have that many patients with rare diseases because the diseases are rare, right? So of course it makes sense that we can gather information from various hospitals to have a larger foundation to do research on rare diseases. So that's just one example. For all different kinds of domains, you are really interested in having a large population so that you can make your analysis from. And that is what you can enable by having a common standardized language for health. So these examples that I've been talking about really underpins the point of a principle which is called collect once and use many times, which is what is in the interest of clinicians, because they don't want to spend the time recording data in 10 different places. For the hospital administrator who wants the services to be effective and efficient. For the information analysts who want to have high quality data, and maybe to the extent where it's not biased by some coding system that have broader classes. No, they want the concepts to be very specific and accurate. So that is why SNOMED CT supports interoperability. Interoperability across systems, interoperable across different stakeholders and different clinical professions. Let's talk now about what we mean with meaningful. So SNOMED CT includes more than 360,000 active concepts. It's huge, but that's because the clinical domain is huge, right? That's why we need so many concepts, because if we want one terminology resource to comprise all the things that we want to record in and around a health record, it's a big system. So that's why SNOMED CT is big. So we spoke about the interoperable disk prolapse. This is just another example of a clinical concept. It could be a myocardial infarction. It could also be an X-ray procedure, or it could be a clinical drug, a tablet containing codeine or something. It could be various things. So here we have a myocardial infarction. It can have many different terms associated with them. And for a clinician, when the clinicians see the term myocardial infarction, the clinician will understand what is meant. The clinician will know that a myocardial infarction is a type of ischemic heart disease, and it's a type of necrosis of the heart. It involves tissue death, and it's located in the myocardium structure. That's something that clinicians learn when they go to medical school. So that knowledge is just implied by that single term myocardial infarction. Okay, computers, when a computer processes myocardial infarction, they don't instantly have that knowledge because they are not trained medically. They are trained in zeros and ones, right? So we need the computers to be able to understand this. And that's why SNOMED CT has spent so much energy, as Liara, SNOMED International, as Liara was talking about, on the quality of these concepts, defining what concepts mean explicitly so that they can be understood by computers as well as humans. So let's look at how we do that in SNOMED. So these clinical concepts, they are defined with a unique identifier and a set of terms, but also a set of relationships. So for example, myocardial infarction is defined with a relationship or a set of relationships to other concepts in SNOMED. So myocardial infarction is defined with a relationship to myocardial necrosis, and an is a relationship to ischemic heart disease. So these two other concepts, myocardial necrosis and ischemic heart disease, are supertypes of myocardial infarction. And the is a relationship that we have here is really what creates that hierarchical structure. So that's one type of relationship that we define for myocardial infarction. Another type of relationship is a finding site. So we also specify where this disorder is located, and we do that explicitly through a relationship that's called the finding site relationship, to state that a myocardial infarction is related to the myocardium structure, which is a body structure. Then we have another relationship which is called associated morphology, to specify what is the morphology of this disorder. In this case, the morphology is an infarct. There's no limit to how many of these relationships a concept can have. The rule is that each of these relationships should always be true for that concept. So you can never have a myocardial infarction where the finding site is not myocardium structure. So all concepts in SNOMED CT comes with an explicit definition, like you see it here, that will actually define that core concept, which is the source. And we do that through these semantic relationships. Here's another example, laryngoscopy. So a laryngoscopy is defined as being a type of endoscopy and a type of examination of larynx. So these statements holds, and it's a triplet, right? There is a source, which is the laryngoscopy, and then there is a type of relationship, ISA, and then a target, endoscopy. So there will be a number of these triplets to indicate what the definition of this concept is. A laryngoscopy is also defined with a method of inspection action and a procedure site direct of laryngeal structure and a using device laryngoscope. So here you can see there are 5 relationships, and as I said, you can have numerous. It depends on the concept that you are trying to define. What you should notice here is that before we saw finding site and we saw associated morphology, and that was because it was a disorder we were defining. So those relationships, they are semantic relationship. It implies some semantics in what kind of relationship we are using. So here we have a relationship which is the method and a procedure site and a using device. So because the core concept that we are defining here is a procedure, we would not use a finding site because a procedure is not a finding. So we have a set of relationships that applies to procedures. We have a set of relationships that applies to clinical findings, other relationships that applies to drugs and body structures and so forth. And that is what we call a concept model. So we specify these rules that will help us to automatically validate that the relationships that we define, that they are valid, so that we don't start to define that diabetes mellitus have a finding site of the heart, right? That wouldn't make sense. So those types of errors is not, can be automatically derived or validated, or that we specify that a procedure has a finding site. That can be automatically identified as being incorrect by a machine. So that's why the quality of SNOMED CT is underpinned in every aspect of SNOMED CT from its development and through the whole development process. So these relationships are useful for the quality, for one, but also to enable effective searches. Because we have these relationships, we can actually use them to grab data and do the selective retrieval. So for example, if I wanted to say, well, give me all the procedures in SNOMED that are defined with a procedure site direct of laryngeal structure, I can create a query and then I would get endoscopy, endoscopy, laryngoscopy. But I would also get other disorders that are performed on the laryngeal structure because those other procedures are also defined with a finding site, procedure site direct to this concept. So in that way, it supports effective analysis. It also supports that we can accurately describe the clinical situation, feeling comfortable that that single code actually includes all that information that is required. It supports analytics, and this is also a means to clinical decision support systems to define rules and triggers for clinical decision support systems. So that's what we mean when we say that SNOMED CT provides meaning to the clinical records. It's because everything that we do is to think about these clinical meanings and how we can define them as accurately as possible. So now let's talk a bit about the actionability. And you'll see more of that over the next 2 days, but that will be the focus of the last part of my talk. How SNOMED CT makes clinical data actionable. So when clinicians, they record patient data, it's of course so that they are able to document what they've done, collaborate with their colleagues, and so forth. But it's also to be able to provide a resource for research analysis and analytics. And the knowledge that is gained from doing new research and evidence will then actually feed back to the clinician so that they can do what I said on the first slide. They want to enhance their performance all the time. And we do that by becoming clever and more knowledgeable. And that is why the data that we record in the clinical hospitals really need to go around that chain so that we can learn from what we do. Either through training and learning resources, but also so that we can develop clinical decision support features that we can embed and integrate into the clinical system so that it can be indirectly used and used in our daily work. That is something that will benefit patients. It's also something that will benefit the population because we know what kinds of services that are good for a certain population type and what kinds of actions to take. And this is the claim that SNOMED CT is far more powerful than for research and analytics compared to conventional classifications. And this leads me to the next part of the talk. Why does it even matter to structure data in this way? Because it requires effort to get to a point where we have data harmonized across all the organization. It's not something that will happen overnight like this. No, it requires all of us to come together and do this. So, think about the journey of electronic health records, right? From the beginning of the 1900s, where everything was captured on paper. Probably some of you have been recording information on papers, right? And shared that and collected them in manual health records. And if someone wanted to read that, well, it requires a whole process of sending and receiving these documents. But then it evolved, and IT was introduced in healthcare. So we have these very first versions of electronic health records where you were able to record information locally. It was with the intention that now we had a foundation to provide more efficient processes and accurate and interoperable data, but it will soon show that that interoperability was not as easy to achieve, which is why we are here in 25 talking about this. Throughout times and in the beginning of the zeros, we have more specialized clinical data capture system where the individual systems with the embedded and integrated procedures were able to start to optimize the workflows and also support data quality and audits to be performed. And that is also where we started to focus on the integration of clinical decision support. Today, what we talk about is precision medicine, right? We want to be able to learn from the data automatically. We don't have to actively always do the audits and do the research. We want actually the data to help us being informed. And that puts really some requirements on the data. It requires deeper insights, it requires some automated processes, and it requires us to see each individual as a single instance that is different from the other. So when looking at it, we have two patients that may very well look the same, but there can be so many aspects, genes, days, ways of living, race, all of that can impact those what seems to be comparable patients, but in reality they aren't. So in order to get to this more what can we say, automated and intelligent clinical systems, it requires more data. There's a lot of data out there, but we really want it to work for us instead of being a burden. So, why is it that structuring data matters? Well, it enhances efficiency. It can support data retrieval, especially if we harmonize it, and analysis. It can support the clear communication and collaboration. It can support evidence decision-making and personalized patient care, facilitate interoperability, integration, and improve accuracy. So all of these things are statements, right? But how can we be convinced of this? As I said in the beginning, I come from Denmark. You know, Lego is from Denmark. We can be proud of that. Let's think about clinical data, but now talk a bit about Lego bricks. So when you collect that tons and tons of clinical data, and it's like seeing it as a big pile of Lego bricks, right? New data, we just gather it all. It's easy to collect. We just put it onto the pile. It's very easy. And if you don't structure it, you can still collect it, but without thinking about it, you can say it's very easy to establish that big pile of Lego bricks. And if I have a new Lego brick, what should I do with it? Let's say it's a new disorder, it's a new procedure. How should I represent that in my system? Well, we assign it a code, and then we give it a term, and then we put it onto the big pile of data. And then we can start to record that. Super. We just add things to our big pile of Lego bricks. Okay, so now I want to start retrieving data. Okay, let's find all the black Lego bricks. Right. It will take us forever, right? Especially if we have all of us building our own piles of Lego bricks, and now we want to grab the black one, the small one, right? So it's easy to establish these chaos of data. And that has a benefit because it goes fast. But it's not fast in the long run, because when we want to then start to use data, it becomes very challenging. So how is it that we can make it easier? Okay, we can start to organize things, right? We can say, here's one box for the red one, here's another box for the blue one, and so forth. Then another person come in, I don't care about the colors, I care about the sizes. Okay, so we can organize them in those with 4 and those with 8 of those small dots that are on it. Oh, no, but I don't care about how many, I care about the length of it. Okay, then we can structure it in a different way. And now you see, we have different stakeholders with different needs. Some want the colors, some want the size, others want the length. That makes it challenging to then start to organize. So we have to make a conscious decision. We'll organize by colors. Then the other people will say, but what about our needs? Okay, you'll have to build your own thing. And then we're back to the big chaos of things, right? Okay, going back to SNOMED, this is really the mess that SNOMED CT is trying to avoid. We're trying to satisfy the different stakeholders with different needs, while not creating this big chaos of things that will take forever to start to harvest the benefits. The value of structured data is that we can build beautiful things. It can be knowledge. So imagine that these big, beautiful things that we can build is the knowledge. We don't know what beautiful thing we're going to build tomorrow, but we know that we need a foundation to be able to do it. Okay? And that's really how I see SNOMED, as a model of clinical knowledge that can be the source and the foundation for us to harvest benefit and build new clinical knowledge and understand the world we live in, so that we can treat patients with severe diseases, so that we can rest assured that when I go into a hospital, I will get the treatment that is suitable for me. So that's the value and why structured data matters, with an analogy to Lego bricks. So when you structure data, like with the red and the blue and the green organization, it helps us find things, right? So when back in the days when we have paper records, we've seen places like this where the records was placed in a good order. It's really structured. So if I want to find a patient with a certain name or year, I could go and find it more easily because the structured help for that situation. But if I want to capture things about a specific diagnosis or procedures, well, then that is not enough, right? Then things like spreadsheets and very simple structures will help us to say, well, this is that disorder. I can count them. So simple structuring will help us get some part of that way. But when we want to be explorative, when we want to satisfy all the needs, and when we want to build new knowledge and decision support, we need something that is more complex and network. And SNOMED CT is that big network of clinical knowledge and semantics or meanings in a network that can actually help us to get the last part of this journey. So now I've come to the point of talking more about the design features of SNOMED. How am I with time? 10 minutes? Perfect. So, good. Good. So, what I want to do now I expect that many of you have been used to working with statistical classifications. So where we have structured our data so that we can reimburse and we code, giving a certain patient, we code and then we assign a specific classification code to that. But SNOMED CT is quite different, and I want to talk about those design features. So in a classification, they are designed to summarize data so that we can report, for example, mortality or morbidity statistics. They are designed so that each code belongs to a certain a single category so that we don't double count. And then coding is performed based on an established criteria. So there is a perspective, and we are able to use the classification to count numbers of disorders and make sure that we don't count that in another category. Terminologies are designed to support clinicians at the point of care. It's the point of departure for recording what is relevant for the clinical information, not what is relevant for reimbursement necessarily, but also what is relevant for reimbursement, but is what's relevant for that clinician at that point in time. And codes can be grouped and categorized. And ontology enables the care and the easy querying. So when I say ontology here, think about the relationships that I was showing, that we have an ontology that we explicitly define, and that is really the basis for care for queries. And then the terminology is also about terms. That's why it's called terminology, so that we use the terms used by clinicians. So this illustrates the various code systems that are used in the healthcare. So for care and treatment up here, right, this is in the top. It's the broadest because we need the terminologies to be big as the clinical spoken language, as I said before. For research, we want to start to group the requirements for that clinical detail may or may not be as broad as for care and treatment. I would argue that potentially they could be aligned. But when it comes to population health, we are interested in broader categories of people, so the requirements for the granularity is less. And when it comes to statistics, even smaller, because that's what the point of doing statistics is, that we say, okay, who have these kinds of characteristics and who have these. So the point of statistical classifications is to group. Say, I want to look at all the red bricks, I want to look at all the blue, or I want to look at all the long. So that's the purpose of the statistical classifications, that they have a predefined purpose of how is it that we want to look at data. And for reimbursement, we define resources groups, and when you look at those kinds of systems, they are even narrower in their scope, not in terms of what can be included, but in terms of the groups that we use. So, and this is really why terminologies such as SNOMED CT should be used for the care and treatment. I also looked at what we had up here. It's a pillar of Thai health system innovation. It's the foundation. We could flop it around like it would be the basis of everything, but it is the starting point. So, statistical classifications, they organize items into overlapping categories based on their properties. If you look at any documentation around what defines a statistical classification, these three features exist. So non-overlapping categories, it's a monohierarchy, so that no subject, you can't have an instance that belongs to multiple categories. That's the double counting part. And it's exhaustive, so everything that you have, so every patient or every disorder should be able to be represented by a code in that classification. We can't have a population if we want to count how many diseases did we have and how did they spread. We can't just ignore some. So we need to be able to count everything. So that's also a feature of a classification. Everything should be able to be counted in that classification. Again, now I talked about Lego bricks in Denmark. I can talk about fruits here because I had fruits in Thailand, and that's amazing. I can tell you it tastes a lot better than in Denmark, where it has traveled and didn't get all the sun and the temperature that you have here. So fruits in Thailand is very good. So let's say that we are defining now a classification of fruits. And we have decided that we are interested in fruits by the type. And we have defined some categories that make sense to us. We have citrus fruits, berries, tropical fruits, and nuts. So this allows us to place our fruits into these categories. Good. So now we are able to count how many citrus fruits are there, how many berries are there, and so forth. So this classification helps us to count the types of fruits we have. Okay, that's good. But what with this apple? So that is similar to that new disorder that exists. What with that apple? What do we do now? It's not a citrus fruit or a berry or tropical or nut. What do we do with this apple? So a feature of all classifications, in order to be exhaustive and to allow that everything can be counted, is that we create this good category, other. Because then we know we have that. So we can count how many other types of fruits do we have. We can say that now, but it requires us as users of a classification to know what others mean, because others depend on what's in the other classes as well, right? So it will really demand something of us to be able to use a classification to understand what this other means and what goes into citrus and what goes into berries and so forth. They have a predefined perspective. So in my classification here, my need was to categorize them by type. In another situation, they would say, no, I'm not interested in the types. I want the fruits by colors. So we can now start to organize in a new classification fruits by colors, purple fruits, orange fruits, red fruits, other fruits. Okay, there's that apple again, right? What do we do now? This apple is red and green. It doesn't belong anywhere. Oh my goodness, it's difficult. So in this case, what will we do? It's not an other color because it's two colors. Well, another thing that goes with classifications is that they come with rules and coding conventions, right? We'll say, okay, if this patient is a male, then we'll assign him this code. If it's a female, this other code. If it's a child, we'll give it this code. If it's an adult, we'll give it this code. There are rules and conventions. And that's perfect for classifications and statistical analysis because it's not just done in blindly when you define these classifications, it's because we're interested in understanding how many adults have this disorder, how many children have this disorder, how many males and females. So the rules are good for the purpose of classifying data. It's not that I'm saying it's not good, it's what we need in order to be able to do that statistical analysis. You just need to bear in mind that you have these rules so that we can assign the apple to the proper group. So for this apple, for example, we'll say, if the apple is both red and green, then it's a red fruit. It may not make sense, but that's what we've decided, and that's where we know what we'll do with that case. So these are the key features of a statistical classification. And it's really good for us to help organize and code so that we can count and do statistics and avoid overlapping data. Let's look at an example. This is an example from ICD-10 to show how these principles are applied. So let's say that we have a viral pneumonia. So pneumonia, I'm not a clinician, but I know that pneumonia is something to do with the respiratory system, right? It's in the lungs. Viral pneumonia, well, I would then guess that it's in the infectious diseases chapter. So right now, with me with no clinical knowledge, looking at ICD-10, I would have to understand where to look. Should I look in chapter 1 or chapter 10? If we look into chapter 10, we'll see there are diseases of respiratory systems. And if you note here, the other diseases of pleura in these cases, that's where you have the other, the example of the other categories. And when you dive in, well, you find viral pneumonia. So it belongs to chapter 10 and not chapter 1. So we are able to count this and register these viral pneumonia. And we also have other viral pneumonias because there are different types and they have different codes. So what you can see here is that in a classification, some of these principles or these principles that I've spoken about apply. Viral pneumonia is not in that other one, but it's in this chapter, which allows us to understand that when we are counting how many respiratory diseases, that includes viral pneumonia. Whereas when we count how many infectious diseases there are, that doesn't include viral pneumonia. So that was a bit about classifications, which is not the core competency here and the focus, but it's just to show you those principles are good when we want to count and have a certain perspective on data. But for a clinician, honestly, their objective is really the clinical detail and what is needed here. And that's where the reference terminology features comes into play. So in SNOMED, we can also define fruits in SNOMED. We don't specify what perspective. Is it by color or by type? No, we define that we have citrus fruit and tropical fruits, and then we define them. But we may also have another hierarchy with all the different colors, and then we associate them through a relationship. So remember how I showed you finding site. In this terminology of fruits, there could be a relationship called ripe color that will link our banana here to yellow, although it's also a tropical fruit. And that's where we say that it's a polyhierarchy. Each code and each concept doesn't belong in one place. No, it belongs to the place, to its definition, you can say. And that definition is a polyhierarchy or a network of things. So it's a subtype polyhierarchy. So you can say, well, a banana, the subtype is that it's a banana, which is a type of tropical fruit, which is a fruit. So you know that everything under fruits here is a kind of fruit. There will be nothing in this hierarchy which is not a fruit. Similarly, there will be nothing over here in that hierarchy which is not a color. So that's the subtype feature that you go in and it becomes more and more detailed the further down the hierarchy you get. But we assign these relationships so that we can represent the meanings. In this case, we can represent both the feature of the classification of type and color, but we don't have these conventions or these other classes. So we don't have residual categories, so those other classes. So what do we do then? Yeah, SNOMED CT, the international edition, is released every month. So if something is missing in SNOMED, it will be added immediately. So what if you are out there now and need it now and it's not there? I need it now. Well, then there are means so that the system should be designed so that you can feed back and say, I need it now, and those providing your terminology should deliver it now. So SNOMED CT is extensible. So if it happened to me in Denmark, I had an organization and I had a doctor saying, I need a concept. Well, then we would create a concept in our national edition so that it could be recorded. Maybe that concept will eventually become an international concept so that SNOMED International will maintain it and not Thailand will maintain the Thai concepts. But if it's something very specific to Thailand, you can keep it in your extension, right? So there are extension mechanisms so that we can fastly get the terminology to hold all the information on concepts that you need. So there are no other groups in SNOMED. You will not search for other. If you go into a browser, Kai will show you in a minute, you can't find other things. We have everything as single instances in SNOMED. Yeah. So that also speaks to the point I said before, why there are so many. So this is an example from SNOMED instead of fruits. So where we looked at ICD-10 before, this is an example from SNOMED where we have viral pneumonia and bacterial pneumonia. And you can see here how it's defined in our sub-hierarchy of diseases or clinical findings. So viral pneumonia is a viral disease, whereas bacterial pneumonia is a bacterial respiratory disease, but they are both types of pneumonias. So it is this network of meanings. They have finding sites to the lung structure, It has associated morphology, inflammation and consolidation. It has pathological process of infectious process. It has a causative agent of virus. So we define them through these relationships, which again all sits in hierarchies in SNOMED CT. We have 19 top-level hierarchies so that all concepts can be organized into this big network of hierarchies. Very briefly, how does that impact analysis? You'll have a larger interactive analytics demo tomorrow, but just very briefly, if we were recording data with a classification and we now want to, based on what we know about the classification, and we wanted to be able to answer questions with this. For example, does the patient have a respiratory disorder? We would say yes, because we would know that the code is J, and we would know where that sits in the hierarchy, so that is a respiratory, the chapter of respiratory diseases. If we were answering, does the patient have an infection? From the classification, the answer would be no, because there was another chapter for that, and it would require us to understand the structure to be able to say, well, it might. There are notes to indicate that. So, does the disorder affect the lung? Maybe. It's probably written there, but we can't immediately. We would need to know it from the way that it's been defined in that classification. Is the disorder caused by a virus? It's the same. There's no easy way to tell other than reading and understanding. But think about what I said earlier. Computers need to understand this as well. So if we were recording with SNOMED and again asking these questions with what we know about the concept, about where it sits in the hierarchy, this is the browser, you'll see that in a moment, but we can see that it has these two parents. It's an infective pneumonia, viral lower respiratory infective disorder, and we have these different attributes. So now we can use that definition to help answering our question. In this case, does the patient have a respiratory disorder? We can say yes, and the machine can say yes, because that concept, viral pneumonia, that identifier there is placed in the hierarchy where it's a subtype of the concept that represents the respiratory disorder concept. Does the patient have an infection? Yes, because it's also placed as a subtype of infectious disorder. Does this disorder affect the lung? Yes, there is a finding site to the lung structure. And is it caused by a virus? Yes, because the causative agent in the definition is a virus. So if it was like a hepatitis or something with a certain specific virus as well, you could also include all the various viruses to answer questions. If it was a population, give me all the patients with a virus, then we could easily grab anyone with a virus. So we can use those hierarchies and those defining properties to ask the questions that we want and have the data help us answer those questions easily. Yeah. So this is actually just underpinning where we came from. How is it that SNOMED CT makes data actionable? It's the features, it's the design, and it's the focus on defining the semantics of the concepts explicitly. So, I think this was the end for now. And should I take that one now, this time? Good. So we've spoken about statistical classification. I've just exemplified with ICD-10. I could have exemplified with other classifications as well. So what I want to talk about now is SNOMED CT's role with other code systems. Because we do acknowledge that there are other code systems that are very good for what they are designed to do. And SNOMED International works hard to make sure that SNOMED can function as that global language for health, but as the hub between other code systems and other needs for clinical data. So we don't want to compromise and let people select for each instance, but we do believe that using SNOMED CT as the core for the clinical care is the starting point. And this diagram, I don't mean for you to read all of this, but I hope that you can get the point of SNOMED CT in the center, where data is born for the clinical care and treatment. And then we have other code systems out there And this slide illustrates all the collaborations that SNOMED CT or SNOMED International is engaged with. So you'll see that there are some we categorize as content. So there are organizations where we are collaborating on making sure the content in SNOMED CT is sufficient for the objectives of these organizations. Then we have maps. So that's where we have a collaboration where the deliverable of that collaboration is that we produce a map so that we can easily link between the coding systems. We have others where we produce ref sets and free sets. So you've heard that SNOMED CT is such a comprehensive one, but for example, for dentistry or nutrition or nursing activities, we want just small sets of SNOMED concepts, and we have clinical groups and very good collaboration with organization to create sets that match other coding systems and other clinical domain or specific clinical domains, so that it's easy to select what is required. Another thing are the extensions and linkage tables. An example is the new LOINC ontology, where we link between SNOMED CT and LOINC to have a more harmonized version, so that you can use the features of SNOMED to actually query and use LOINC. So that's also one of the key objectives for us, is to make sure that all of us in the world who works with clinical coding systems work together. And let that be it for now. And Kai will show you some tools. That's always cool. So he'll show you the browser. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. It's about 10 minutes until the break. I'll try not to run over. I don't want to hold you from your coffee breaks. We're going to have a quick look at the browser for 5 minutes or so. And then I'm going to show a user interface demonstration as well, which demonstrates how we think SNOMED CT should be used. As Anna said, SNOMED isn't a clinical system. It's more like an information model, like a graph of data. So it's up to you how you integrate it with your clinical systems, but we wanted to show a demonstration of that. So I'm going to start in the browser. It's available at snomed.org/browser. We'll redirect you to this page. Hopefully you can see. You can see here that there's many national versions of SNOMED CT, and many countries have added translations or other customizations to SNOMED for their own purposes in their nations. I'm going to look at the international edition of SNOMED CT. And we can see that there's many versions available in this browser throughout time. We used to release SNOMED every 6 months, but now the international edition is released every month, a new version. So we're on the May version now. I'm going to introduce you to the layout of the browser. So on the left-hand side, we have a lot of high-level things. We've got the taxonomy here, which is like all the hierarchies. There's 19 different hierarchies in SNOMED. I'm seeing if I can make it a bit bigger for you. I'll talk through those in a minute. Then we've got the search for searching through the whole of SNOMED. We've got favorites and reference sets. They're like pre-made lists of concepts. And then on the right-hand side, we have the details about some specific concept that we're looking at. And for each concept we've loaded, we can see all the descriptions, all the relationships, a lot of information. And finally, there's a tab here that allows us to run queries over SNOMED CT using the hierarchies and the relationships. So you can see that I've got the descendants count on here. We can see like a summary information about how much content we've got in SNOMED. And it shows that we've got over 370,000 clinical concepts here. And some of the main hierarchies are the clinical findings, which includes both normal findings in the body and abnormal findings like disorders. And those clinical findings are supported by the body structures. So we have all the body structures are modeled in SNOMED, the bones, the tissues, the organs, the body systems, they're all modeled in SNOMED. And there's relationships between the clinical findings and the body structures. We also have many other things. Another of the main hierarchies is the procedures. This covers kind of anything you can do in a clinical setting. It's very broad. It covers education, for example, educating the patients. It could be transportation of patients, but it also covers medical procedures as well and surgical procedures. And those procedures have relationships, again, to parts of the body. They also have relationships to the devices which are used. It could be relationships to the drugs used as well. So another main hierarchy is the pharmaceutical biological product hierarchy. This is where we've got categorizations of different drugs. Drugs are categorized by the substance that they're made up of, the intent of the drugs. And we have the substances themselves. So it's very thorough. There's a lot of detail available. So it's kind of flexible in the way that you can use it. But there's kind of a warning that SNOMED covers so much information that when you actually use it in clinical systems, you need to be specific about which area you want to use. When I do a search now in the browser, I'm going to search for append as an example. And this will search the whole of SNOMED CT. So there's no kind of constraints. I'm getting some inactive concepts, so I'm going to adjust my search. I only want to see the active ones. And we can see here the first result is the appendix, which is a body structure, part of the body. And it shows here in the brackets. This is what we call the semantic tag. This is the body structure. So we can look that the appendix structure is, this is one of the relationships. It's a structure of the region of the large intestine, and we can go up through the relationships. It's part of the large intestine. We can keep going up. Eventually we get to, it's part of the digestive tract. So it's thoroughly categorized. But because we're doing a completely unconstrained search over the whole of SNOMED, we've also got appendicitis, the disorder. And that's a type of disease. And it's linked to the appendix structure, the part of the body. And it's also described as, it has an associated morphology. So the change in the appendix is that it's inflamed. This is all described in the relationships. And this is useful for queries. We've also got the procedure, appendicectomy, the process of the excision of the appendix. So it's all here. And obviously, in a clinical setting, you don't want to search the whole of SNOMED CT. I'm going to do the UI demonstration now, where we have more constraints around search. This is kind of like searching the whole warehouse of all the different products you have. It's not a good presentation or showcase for selling or giving something specific. The SNOMED UI demo is available at snomed.org/UI. This is a demonstration application. It's kind of a mock-up of what we think a clinical user interface could look like. I'm going to start in the patient details. And this captures, basic details about the patient, the name, the date of birth. These things wouldn't use SNOMED CT because they're just free text. We've got an example here of where it's appropriate to have a drop-down of codes. Everything in this interface with an S is coded with SNOMED concepts. This is one of the only fields, because we only have 6 different values in this interface, it's appropriate to have a drop-down. We can select the sex of the patient. I'm going to come over to the encounter now, and we can put in the reason for encounter. Now, the reason for encounter, because it's a demonstration, we're showing which areas of SNOMED that we're going to search when we select the reason for encounter. And we're searching the clinical findings, of which there's over 100,000. We're also searching procedures, and we're searching different situations, or it could be events, like, for example, the patient's had a fall. Now, that's such a broad area. There would be, hundreds of thousands of results. You couldn't have a drop-down. It's completely inappropriate. It has to be a search. I'm going to use the same search here of append. And we've got appendicitis comes up and appendectomy. But actually, the patient has come because they've got pain. They've got pain in the stomach or a stomach ache. So, of course, the clinician will, run some tests, some diagnosis tests, and they may decide that the patient has appendicitis. Going to run the same search here, append, and we've only got appendicitis coming up because that's the disorder that the patient has. So these UI elements are constrained to the correct area of the hierarchy. This is what we call terminology binding. And the procedure, again, I'll do the same search, append. The procedure is appendectomy. So this is how we think clinicians should be presented or use SNOMED CT. They should have search fields. They should be able to type a few letters and find exactly what they want using clinical language. They shouldn't see any SNOMED codes. They shouldn't need any training. They should just search for the terms that they know, the clinical terms, and the search field should be able to find what they want. And now on this clinical record, we have 3 SNOMED codes. The last field here is about laterality. Now, obviously, the appendix structure and the appendectomy can't be done in 2 sides of the body. There's only one appendix, so it can't be lateralized. And SNOMED has this information baked in, so it helps you capture good quality data. You couldn't say it's the left appendectomy because that doesn't make any sense. So SNOMED helps you, not record nonsense. I'm looking at the time, and I promise not to hold you from your coffee break, so I'm going to wrap up there. But yeah, thank you for listening. I think we're breaking now for half an hour. Is that right?
เดี๋ยวเรามีเบรกนะครับแต่ก่อนเบรกอย่าเพิ่งออกไปนะครับผมขอถ่ายรูปหน่อยนะครับตอนนี้มัน full house นะครับก็เลยมีประชาสัมพันธ์อีกอันหนึ่งสไลด์ทั้งหมดนี่นะครับอยู่ใน QR code ท่านเห็นอยู่บนโต๊ะลงทะเบียนหรือว่าเนี่ยตรงนี้มี QR code นะครับสไลด์ทั้งหมดที่พูดวันนี้เนี่ยท่านดาวน์โหลดได้จาก QR code นี้นะครับครับก็ขอเชิญอาจารย์ดาวเลิกอาจารย์เทียมแล้วก็อาจารย์รัตน์นะครับที่อยู่เนี่ยมาอยู่ข้างหน้า
ครับหลังจากนี้ถ้าเกิดท่านไหนยังไม่ได้ลงทะเบียนที่ชั้น4นะครับสามารถขึ้นไปลงทะเบียนได้เลยแล้วก็เขาจะมีแจกตัว lunch coupon ให้นะครับ
11 โมงเข้ามานะครับผมอยากให้เข้ามาเพราะว่าเดี๋ยวเราจะซูมไป2ประเทศนะครับก็คืออินเดียกับมาเลเซียที่เขา implement SNOMED แล้วลองฟังเขาดูว่าเขาพูดว่ายังไงนะครับอันนั้นเป็นของต่างประเทศแล้วก็พรุ่งนี้บ่าย เราจะเป็นของประเทศไทยนะครับที่มีหลายหน่วยงานที่ลองใช้ SNOMED นะครับงั้นอย่าพลาดพรุ่งนี้ตอนบ่ายนะครับขอบคุณครับ
We're facing the problem of
Can you select voice audio?
how do you
Select software.
special effort, and they have the same, kind of meaning for us. It was without special effort, without special effort. That's what the Congress said. Had very strong bipartisan support. This wasn't just a. Regardless of where it lives, right? Really important point to just to keep in your heads as you think about information blocking. It's about the data. That's what they said. They said it's about the data. We don't care where it lives. Your problem, not society's problem. Your problem. If you're an actor, you've got to figure it out because that's what the law says. Final thing is it defines interoperability as sort of the natural state of things, right? It's really kind of interesting where it says things that are not impeded by information blocking, right? It's kind of an interesting flipping of the paradigm, right? It basically kind of says that the natural state is interoperability, and it is only active information blocking that blocks that natural state, right? And which, when a way, flips it, right? Because before this, you sort of think of interoperability as something that I have to actively do. Oh, I have to actively.
It's okay, right? We will do it this way.
Yeah, put it this way.
But, so we don't touch it. Can we have another microphone for us?
Yeah. We can have another microphone.
Yeah, so this is the microphone.
Is it a good angle?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
There's no
Yeah. We can do this.
Rotate test.
It's bad today. Okay, thank you. Careful. Thank you very much. This is good.
I will grab one now. Yeah, thank you. I think I have India first. First.
First is whatever you're going to talk about, like
Yeah.
the showcase.
Yes,
part,
of course.
And then half an hour at the end is India, 20 minutes presentation, and
Okay,
around
good.
10 minutes questions. If people want to ask questions, it's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
So we encourage people to.
Okay. That's
So why
it.
don't
But
you-
we leave it like this.
Yes,
And I
but
put.
let me, did you?
Why don't
do I-
you?
do I need to make you a
I mean,
host,
connect to Zoom.
or how do
Try.
I think we should try.
But the Zoom is like in an hour. We can connect to Zoom just to try.
we? In the background? Is that what you're thinking?
No, try in one time. So,
just once to try and
Yeah.
then log in again.
yeah.
เอาได้ Okay. Just, you want to over here? สำหรับ A หินเหรอ Okay.
So we need to send them. We need to somehow. This is what people would see. You will be sitting here. They won't see the room
No.
unless we.
We need to have the actual camera screen.
Yeah. I'm thinking if I can.
So
Can I do this?
yeah, you don't need to see yourself. But aren't we projecting the slides? You don't want to be. It's not the camera you need. You need
No,
what's
no.
on the screen.
No, but I'm thinking about the people in the room, in the other side, what they will see.
They would see your screen.
My screen, no, they are presenting themselves, or are we presenting?
Via our Zoom. So they have to be able to see
So
your
you
screen.
share them.
They will dial in.
And they will share their screen.
Yes, but it will be this thing that...
But that's what they will capture because we have that.
Okay, correct.
That's
yes.
fine.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, it's not the audience because they're not an audience. They're going to dial in through Zoom, show the presentation on our Zoom platform.
And we have
Yeah.
another Zoom. This Zoom will
Yes.
be in our Zoom. So
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
through three
Yes,
people.
the
Yeah,
only
okay.
thing we need to show is your
But
screen.
you
quite
can,
literally.
but you can open for the pleasure of the people in India.
What will they see?
They will see you at least.
Yeah, because they won't see the...
Why is the feedback?
Because of the
I mute. Oh, they are not mute. They need to mute.
Yeah, got it.
They connected? Or you connected? Who connected?
I haven't connected.
Oh, someone called Chai has connected.
oh
Yeah, that's them. That's the organ.
ไอ้
Somebody
โกะ
from
อยู่
here.
ไหนอะ
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to. No, I mean they must be mute now because it's
อ๋อมีสายแล้วเหรอใช่ครับ Okay they got the line
the line for the audio.
เดี๋ยว
You know why
Oh,
I think
nice.
it's not relevant for Indian audience?
No, sometimes when you're giving your speech, it's nice to see something.
But what I'm saying is it's not us giving speech, it's India giving speech.
I know, but they will do that to a black screen, and that's sometimes it's a bit uncomfortable. That's the only thing I say.
Yeah, I'm lost a little bit. What do you mean black screen?
If
They
you're-
will be
because they
projecting-
don't see the room
Oh,
They
from
don't
that
see.
perspective.
Yeah, they don't see the audience. They will see you. They will see you. It's fine. You leave the camera open, so at
Yeah.
least they see you.
But that's how all our presentations and all the events are given.
another solution
you're right,
is that
you're
you
right.
use your phone
You're right, you're
that's
right.
Like it's
another solution
But you
is
see a
that
colleague sometimes. You see something. Yeah, you're right.
you
yeah.
use your phone and then log in and then have another kind of the channel as the room so they see that what happened
Yeah. So now it's
you know there is so many audience right one audience is the room
yes, but
it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry. It's. I mean, for Liara, I
yes,
think.
I can dial in. They can see my face, but
Yes.
or I can
put it
put it. Yeah, but that's gonna
Yes,
be
yes.
weird because I have stabilized.
No. Yeah. It's also difficult for the button
Project.
because
now they
interoperate with others. The Congress came along in the 21st Century Cures Act and said, no, you're thinking about it all wrong. You're thinking about it all wrong. Interoperability means the data should just be flowing, and it is an unnatural act for anyone to step in the middle of it unless they have really good reasons. So, again, really interesting paradigm shift to me, and,
มันหลุดจากคอมเขาอะพี่ใช่ใช่ไม่มันหลุดมาจากไลน์นู้นใช่ไหมใช่ไลน์เสียงคอมเขาอะ
เช็ควันจื้อจื้อโอเคเช็คจื้อ
เป็นไงพี่เสียงมาไหมไหนพี่ลองพูดใหม่กับให้ผมหน่อย
เช็ควันจื้อได้ยินผมไหมพี่ได้ยินไหม
โอเคครับพี่เรียบร้อยค
โอ
รับ
เคครับผม
And I think as you know,
Yes, please.
Okay, so it's around 11 o'clock already. Welcoming everyone back here. The next topic will be the SNOMED CT Showcase. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Alejandro López Osornio for the second session, which is SNOMED CT Showcase, including the benefits and incentives, SNOMED CT around the globe, and the implementation examples.
Okay, but I can use this one. Well, thank you very much. The idea was to present you, after understanding what SNOMED is, what are the benefits, what's the structure and the mechanisms. The idea today was to present a bit of what's going on in the countries. Oh, I think this is, we need to present here, right? This is a PowerPoint. It's the main screen. What should I do? It's full screen. Transmitting the wrong thing, right? Yeah. So we're fixing the screen, sorry. Switcher, it will be extended, it should say mirror.
Mirror, yeah.
Good.
Okay, good, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now got it. Well, thank you very much. So this is a showcase of what SNOMED is. As Liara was showing earlier in the first presentation, SNOMED uses all around the world. When you see the dark blue countries here, these are member countries that use SNOMED as an official terminology on their interoperability paradigm. And the ones that are lighter are countries that use SNOMED in particular projects, in regions or organizations. So in total, we have 51 member countries, like Liara and Anna was saying before. So let me show you a bit how it's used in some of these, in maybe the countries that were the original founders of SNOMED. So one example is the United States. And I will be referring a lot to presentations in the SNOMED Expos. Yes, the Expo is a place where all the country representatives and users around the world get together and show what they are doing. So the presentation contains links that you can follow to see these presentations and to learn more about how SNOMED is used in these countries, in these settings. So in the United States, SNOMED is an official terminology for exchanging healthcare information. Yes, it's managed by the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT. It's called ONC, that organization in the US. And it's required for encoding problems, procedures, and other clinical data in electronic clinical records. Yes, the idea is to support interoperability and ensure consistent data exchange across healthcare system. This is, the US is a complex country in the health system because they have a lot of private providers, a lot of states, different regulations. So in order to implement something like SNOMED, they need to start to align to use the same standards. So they use economic incentives. In the US, when you want to bill for some public insurance like Medicare or Medicaid, you're required to use SNOMED. And if you can demonstrate that you're using SNOMED correctly, you get money for your hospital or for your clinical practice. Another example is Canada. And Canada, SNOMED is in charge of Canada Health Info, which is the team that manages SNOMED in Canada. And here it's using electronic health records and electronic medical records to encode diagnosis, procedures, and findings. And again, the goal is to support semantic interoperability and health data exchange. Canada is different because it has different provinces with a lot of independence. And then it's interesting because they need to convince each one of the provinces to adopt SNOMED in different ways. They also have used in the past economic incentives. The private practices or companies also need incentives to adopt SNOMED. So they work together to see how in a country they work using the same standard. Yes, so and SNOMED is the basis for all the data transactions. Other more centralized countries like the UK, they have a centralized health service like the NHS. And the NHS has more power of regulation. Yes, so the NHS has designated SNOMED as the main clinical terminology. So it's used in primary, secondary, and tertiary care, and it also is used to code diagnosis, procedures, and observations, to exchange data, and to record detailed information that can be used for secondary purposes, like research or things like that. So the NHS is really advanced in distributing SNOMED all around the country, and that's related to the nature of how the health system is organized. The government has more power, and they can impose the use of SNOMED in different places with more facilities compared to other countries. Another similar example is the SNOMED CT in Australia. Australia is a complex country as well. They have different states with different regulations, but they have a very strong technical team that can create and distribute SNOMED effectively across Australia. Australia has a SNOMED extension and has a very detailed medications, the Australian medicine terminology, which is similar to a Thailand medicine terminology, is developed inside the SNOMED CT. So if you want to use electronic prescription or any operation related to medications, you need to use SNOMED to do that. And you use the monthly or bi-monthly releases of SNOMED in Australia. So this is another example of how they use it. In general, of the 50 countries, you can see how many have their national extensions. This is a screenshot of the browser that Kai was showing before. And you can see how many from Argentina, Austria, Belgium, Ireland, Germany, France, Switzerland. They all have their national extensions. Yes, these are countries that are creating a national edition of SNOMED CT to provide to the users in their country. And they're using different strategies to convince people to use SNOMED. Depending on their settings, depending on their structures, they use different mechanisms to help people use SNOMED. But one way to explore how SNOMED is used is to try to go through the experiences in the SNOMED expos. So we went a few years back and we tried to find interesting things to share with you that people have shared in the previous SNOMED expos. And these are 5 examples from 2023. When you get the presentation, you have a link here that you can get to go to the full playlist, and you can see all the experiences shared in each one of these expos. But this is one example. This is an example from Switzerland, for example. Switzerland has used SNOMED to create this infectious diseases dashboard. It's like a visualization tool that you can see where in the whole country the infectious diseases are appearing, the cases of hospital infections, the cases of sepsis, the cases of complications, the cases of communicable diseases. All these are represented in a map, and the map helps you identify patterns, detect problems, plan how to help people to go through that, and it can also predict possible outbursts. Yeah, so SNOMED is key, and there's a very nice presentation in the 2023 Expo describing this project that is still in use and is really good. Another example is an experience from the US to use SNOMED to implement interoperable social determinants of health data for social equity in healthcare. Yes, and this is a project in the US where they record information about the patients and they capture social information. And this social information is important to manage these patients, to detect patterns, and to plan public policy to support these patients. Another example is this one from Sophie Williams in the UK, and Kai was a bit part of this project at some point, that is about a knowledge graph to predict diabetes food diagnosis from deeply phenotyped patients. Yeah, so we have information about the patients. That information is coded with SNOMED CT, and they implement rules to try to predict the possibility that they will develop diabetic food diagnosis. Yes, and they're using SNOMED for that. The next example is similar, but predicting risk of miscarriage and preterm birth using SNOMED CT. So they have detailed information about the mothers, about the controls, the obstetrician controls during pregnancy, And they use all that information to try to detect which mothers have an increased risk of miscarriage and preterm birth. And the last one is very interesting from 2023, is how it's experience also from the US about how to implement the nationally notified disease reporting and pathogen surveillance. This is a very common use case. The UK has a similar program. Chile went through a similar process and discussed this with these people soon. So these are like different experiences presented in 2023, and you can find them online in the YouTube channel about how SNOMED has been applied to these use cases and was instrumental to make them work. And if we go to the next year, the year 2024, the expo happened in Seoul last year. We met there. It was a very busy conference. It was really, really interesting. There were many people presenting experiences, and we selected 5 experiences from that as well. And the first one is especially from Korea, and it's the implementation of SNOMED in cancer synoptic reporting. And this doctor that was part of this project is a participant in an effort in SNOMED International that tries to create synoptic reporting forms. And that means that for each type of cancer, in a collaboration with the International Coalition for Cancer Reporting, they create a SNOMED encoded form that uses HL7 FIRE questionnaires. So when you implement that, the pathology reports are much more detailed because you have like 2 pages of information for each type of cancer that the pathologist or the clinician can go and record all the information, and it's ready to be used in a national cancer registry, for example. So this is a very interesting experience to watch. And the other one is an experience from Norway. Norway is working really hard to improve their medication data, so they improve the management of medication in Norway, and they're using SNOMED to represent a few of the classes there. You can see how they're using SNOMED and other terminologies to represent the medication content. Yes, and using that, they ensure that they can support prescription, they can support procurement, supply chain management, and all that. Another interesting example was this from Teresa from Ireland. Yes, they are developing a dentistry reference set in Ireland. Yes, they want to record information about dentistry with a lot of detail. They want to have a lifetime follow-up of the patients from the dental aspect as well. And they use SNOMED to code all the diseases and the procedures and everything related to the dental aspects. And they create these ref sets that are like short lists of SNOMED content that are used for a particular use case. This is interesting as well from Germany, that Sophie presented how they are using SNOMED to prevent post-operative delirium and improving outcomes with computable guidelines. So they have guidelines to produce that, to prevent these conditions in patients that are undergoing surgery, for example. And in order to be able to follow the guidelines, to control how much the guidelines are applied, to see if they comply with their own guidelines, they represent the concepts in the guidelines using SNOMED CT. And that facilitates the monitoring, the implementation of these strategies. And the last one is an example from France, Emile Højen, that he has explored, and he's implementing a system that will use SNOMED to support medication exchange in case of medicine shortages. Yes, if you don't have one medication, what's the most similar medication you can give to the patient? And to do that conversion, you need to know the ingredients, you need to know the strengths of the medication, you need to know the dose forms. Yes, so using SNOMED to translate from one to the other, they created these decision models that help people work in the context of medicine shortages. So this is interesting. I missed one there. Yeah, I'm pressing the wrong button there. And the last thing to show you is about the IPS. This is an experience, an update of the IPS is presented on every expo because it's an international project that is ongoing for several years. and this is information from the update presented in 2024. The IPS is an international resource called International Patient Summary that is a standard that summarizes patient information to be exchanged between centers, between different caregivers. And if you say, what's in a patient summary, and you have here the main components. In a patient summary, you have the medications of the patient, the allergy intolerance, the problems, the immunizations, the results, and the procedures. There are a few more, but these are the basic ones. And the idea is that if you don't know anything about the patient and you need to analyze the patient from scratch, if you receive this summarized information, that's enough for you to improve the safety and the quality of the care that you can do. IPS is an effort of different standard organizations. Yes, it's an effort, combined effort of SNOMED, of the European Community, of HL7, of IHE International, and SNOMED. Yes, it's a very large endeavor, yes? And the idea is that provides a healthcare summary for an individual at a point in time, in the point of care. Yes, it's minimal, so it has only the basic information that you need for that purpose, and it's non-exhaustive. It doesn't need to have all the laboratory results, maybe the more relevant ones, or all the medication, maybe the relevant medication. The idea is especially agnostic and condition independent, but still clinical relevant. So it's one summary for any condition of the patient, for any specialty of care, and that should be useful. It's designed to be simple and implementable, and it's usable anytime in any place by anyone, and the beneficiaries are multiple because you benefit the patient itself, but also the doctor that is taking care of the patient or the organizations that receive that information. And the IPS is based on a precursor, which was the EPS, the European Patient Summary, and now they developed together to be compatible. So the European Union has regulations that they are endorsing to communicate information between European countries using this format, the IPS or EPS format, yes? So what we see is that SNOMED integrated with these information structures that support information exchange is an integral part of communicating clinical content around the world. Yeah, so we are looking into a future in which the information will follow the patient. You will be able to travel between countries, between hospitals, between provinces, between regions, between the private and the public sector. And when you move in this along the healthcare system, the information will travel with you in some way. And one of those ways is the International Patient Summary. And SNOMED will be there to fill the values so you can understand which are your diseases, which are your allergies, which medications or immunizations you have. And this has been especially relevant lately to manage migration. Yes, the world has experimented a lot of migration lately due to political problems, to war, to natural disasters and things like that. So when a migrant gets to a country, it's a clean slate. You don't know, they don't bring their clinical record, you don't know their diseases, you don't know the vaccines. Sometimes they need to receive all the vaccines again in order to get access to a country. So these kind of initiatives are the initiatives that will get to this future state in which information will travel along with the patients and will be usable by the clinics and the doctors around the world. So don't miss the expo this year. In 2025, there will be a new expo. This time it will be in Belgium, in Antwerp. And if you can go there, it's amazing. You can follow this online. It's free, and you can just register and get a link to follow the expo online. And then a few weeks after the expo, all the presentations and videos are uploaded to YouTube. So you can follow all these advances and see other examples of how people are using SNOMED around the world. So thank you. We have a few minutes for questions. You can ask questions related to this or the previous presentations about SNOMED and the browser and the demos and all that.
ก็มีคำถามเรื่องที่แอนไลล่าคายแล้วก็อเรจันดาถามก็มีเชิญเลยนะครับผมเสริมอีกนิดนึงนะครับพอดีมันอาจจะพูดเรื่องตัวอย่างของหลายประเทศเดี๋ยวเราจะซูมตอน 11:30 น.กับ2ประเทศก็คือประเทศอินเดียซึ่งเขาเป็นสมาชิกก่อนหน้าเราสักปีหนึ่งนะครับกับประเทศมาเลเซียนี่เขาเป็นสมาชิกก่อนเราเนี่ยประมาณสัก5 ปีนะครับแล้วเขาก็ implement ในหลายโปรเจกต์มากนะครับว่าทั้ง2ประเทศนี้ใช้อยู่พอดีอเรจันดาเร็วไปเหลือ9 นาทีก็มีคำถามไหมครับ
They have joined. Oh, they already on the chat. They already joined the Zoom call, so maybe they can start early if we need. It's India.
Okay.
India will tell us about their experience implementing SNOMED in a few minutes.
ครับก็เราก็เริ่มที่ประเทศอินเดียของอินเดียก่อนก็ได้นะครับ
Only India. Today is only India. And tomorrow Malaysia.
Oh, sorry. ผมเข้าใจผิดวันนี้เฉพาะเราขอให้อินเดียเรามาเล่าให้ฟังว่าเขา implement ยังไงนะครับพรุ่งนี้เป็นมาเลเซียโอเค and then next เดี๋ยวก่อนได้ไหมเอาอินเดียก่อนครับ then what next is it in this
Yes, I'm ready, but maybe they have questions before that. We have like
I think we should do the Indian first and then we can do the questions.
Let's do that. Okay. Hi, hello. Hello, and yeah, I think everything. Well, I need to connect. Computer.
Hello. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can see.
Okay. Now you are.
Hi, Achyut. Hello. Yes, we can hear
Hello,
you
Aman.
and we can see you. That's perfect.
Yes.
And you're now on the screen for the rest of the audience.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. So I welcome you all from India. So I am here basically to showcase the implementation of the best approach or the best practice of integrating SNOMED CT in EHR application. So in India, we are a member of SNOMED International since 2014. And we have been conducting SNOMED CT and integration across India from last 10, 11 years now. And through this journey, we have created our own SDK toolkit, which is called as CDAX toolkit for SNOMED CT. This is a middleware where implementers download these free and open source toolkits, and it comprises of 4 basic components. One is the Java based library, which the implementers can directly integrate in their application while implementing SNOMED CT and consume the functions and methods of Java based applications. Apart from that, we also have a lightweight web service which is exposed through the APIs, and these APIs can be integrated and directly integrated into the application. The third component is a Java-based, the jQuery-based plugin. It's a pick and plugin sort of things that can be invoked on any button click, where it can directly give a search box where it will give you the SNOMED CT search functionality and other stuff. And the fourth one is, of course, the SNOMED CT browser. So these are the components that we have developed for adoption of SNOMED CT. And whatever today I am going to show you is a demonstratable EHR application, which is basically designed to showcase how SNOMED CT can be integrated in the any sort of EHR application. So whatever the fields and the forms that we have designed here are basically a common fields where the data of any patient can be captured. So and at the back end we have integrated our own web service and the APIs to get the SNOMED CT content for the relevant fields in this particular demo EHR application. So in this application, typically we have this basically we have designed from the perspective of generation of the clinical note, discharge summary, or the e-prescription format, and this has been formulated based on the government of India regulations, where this particular format and the data, how that can be captured and other stuffs. So basically in typical in any sort of EHR, this specifically we have designed for our own training purposes, which implementers want to know how SNOMED CT can be integrated, and what are the other ways to integrate the SNOMED CT in relevant fields of in any HMIS or the EHR application. So typically in EHR, we have a patient in the doctor information and the patient information. So each and every field can get from the SNOMED CT. So we, for the showcase purpose, we have shown the SNOMED CT concept and the fully specified name on the mouse over of each field, so that the implementers can get to know from where exactly those concepts are coming from the SNOMED CT hierarchies. So these all have been captured from the SNOMED CT itself. The specific, the specialization of the doctors is also getting from the uh, getting from the SNOMED CT. Just a minute. Yeah, so all these fields are coming from the SNOMED CT to showcase and integrated for a better way of integrating SNOMED CT in the application. Just beg your pardon. I think my service has been a bit disturbed. Yeah, so yeah, sorry for that. So basically, so the specialization is coming from the occupation hierarchy. So orthopedic surgeon. So this is coming from the occupation hierarchy. So this way, all the EHR fields that we have covered, and from the patient perspective, the name, the ID or the blood group, whatever he is selecting is also coming from SNOMED CT. The occupation, that is also we are capturing the gender or the sex of particular patient. So this is about the doctors and the patient information. Now, if we go to the encounter, the chief complaint or the sign symptoms are specifically captured from clinical finding hierarchy. For example, uh, I don't know, some service issue, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Some service related issue, I think. Yeah, so specifically, the chief complaint has been captured from clinical finding, and the relevant timestamp from where these are coming. So basically, if we consider as a headache, this is coming from the finding hierarchy, let's say, for example, 4 days, and we add this, then fever with chills, for example, 4 days. Then we probably come to the diagnosis part, where the provisional diagnosis can be detected as uh, VVAX malaria. Here we have integrated the SNOMED CT to ICD map directly over here. So once the doctor enters the VVAX max from the disorder hierarchy, the relevant ICD-10 code immediately pops up here. So this will help doctors to choose what exactly the relevant ICD-10 code is, rather than to rely on the MRD department to select the ICD-10 codes for the classification and the reporting purpose, right? Because it has a uh, single to many ICD-10 codes we get. So for the single SNOMED CT codes, we have a multiple ICD-10 codes. So it's better that the doctor choose the particular ICD-10 code. So here we have also provided the ICD-10 code database, which can be shown what is the text for that particular ICD-10 code is as well. So from the procedure hierarchy, doctor can enter the relevant procedure. Right? So if we select the procedure, the relevant fields of that particular particular SNOMED CT concept gets immediately filled. So here the site and the device and the other stuffs are not there, but method, education, action is there. So it is automatically filled. So this way we can get the benefit of SNOMED CT relationships. So the attributes can directly filled over here. Right? So this way we can enter the data. If we move ahead with the history of a patient, then here we have filtered the data with the situation hierarchy. For example, history of asthma, right? So it's history of asthma for last 3 years that we can enter. If patient has any family history, then probably the maybe family history of diabetes mellitus, that can be captured through let's say situation hierarchy. I don't know, I have a bad luck today because some service issues is there. Yeah, family history of diabetes mellitus. And also a relationship can be captured, which is specifically coming from person hierarchy. So here is a father. We can also have any family history for the mother as well. So FH, hypertension for maybe for mother. So this way we can capture this. So here we have shown what exactly the concept idea and other stuffs for particular data captured. But in the actual implementation, you need not to show this mouse over and other stuff. So so the data of SNOMED CT concept and the captured text can be directly integrated into the database. If we go to the assessment, so here the most of the vitals are the fields we have captured in the SNOMED CT from the observable entity hierarchy. So the systolic blood pressure maybe 120, diastolic maybe 90, SOP is 98, pulse rate is 95, and so on. So the maybe body temperature 101, right? So height, weight probably 173, and weight is 78, maybe in Fahrenheit 101, right? That way. So so this is the vital signs. For this, a relevant map can be created at the backend for all these fields where the associated numeric values can be captured. So that way you can standardize this diagnostic assessment areas of EHR application. From the laboratory perspective, the laboratory orders can be get from the procedure hierarchy. So where LDH right. So LDH for specific for the malaria that can be given an order for the test, and then maybe the Vivax Plasmodium Vivax antibody test can be performed, right? Similarly, the radiology orders can be get. So this is specifically captured from the procedure hierarchy, and the laboratory tests are the parental concept which specifically captured here. So we have filtered with the specific the children's to get the search from specifically from the laboratory test of the procedure hierarchy. From the assessment perspective, we can capture that the color of face, so the color of face which is coming from the observable entity, color of face coming from the observable entity, and for this the relevant result probably the red face, right? So that way you the SNOMED CT can be captured. So here observations are coming from the observable entity and the results are coming from the finding hierarchy, right? If we go to the allergies part, then here we can define the allergies. For example, a dust which cardinality is low and the verification is confirmed, and the manifestation is itchy eye, right? So that way the allergies can be captured, and the most probably the any substance called as paracetamol, if the patient has some allergies to that, then he can write so let the data comes. So here we have integrated the clinical decision support system, where when the doctors provide any allergies to the patient. For example, here the paracetamol is, and we have integrated the decision support system, decision support by using the SNOMED CT beauty with the relationships, where if we prescribe here the brand or any medicine, for example Dolo 650, then probably the integration of or the maybe I'll do it again. Paracetamol, intermediate, confirm. I have a very bad luck today. The service is disturbing a lot for me. Oh God.
We do demos all the time, and these things happen. The terminology server probably is not responding as fast. But this is amazing. All the details that you have in this demonstration. We have a very simple one, just for like the first page, like what you have. But this is so
yes. So
interesting.
here, if we capture, then probably it shows the alert, the alert that you cannot prescribe the Dolo because the patient is allergic to the paracetamol, right? So that way we have integrated. So here what we have captured is we have see that the paracetamol allergy is a BOSS for the Dolo, which is basis of strain substance for the Dolo composition. So it is giving you alert that you cannot, you don't prescribe, so that because the patient is allergic to the particular substance. So for this, if we, for example, capture or say, for example, so here for the specifically medicine, India is developing common drug codes for India, standardized drug codes as a SNOMED city extension to the SNOMED International, because we specifically more practice to prescribe the branded medicine. So this extension, India extension, has more than 80,000 branded medicine to this particular extension. So this is integrated, and the specifically the Dolo is coming from the CDCI no, I mean national extension. So here also we have the dose form and the route of administrations are auto filled. We are fetching from the attribute of particular generic medicine. The direction of usage we have got from the specific hierarchy called as the frequency, and this is how the doctors can prescribe the medicine. For example, if in replace of paracetamol, if doctors want to prescribe from the for the branded medicine, then he can select the brand and the give uh, dose form to that. So every morning one dose for, let's say, for 5 days. So this is how the prescription can be shown. So each field we have shown the relevant SNOMED city code and the hierarchy and its fully specified name. So for the PENS 40 mg oral tablet, we have shown the RCD real clinical drug for that, and in the particular for this, if doctor wants to prescribe the alternative medicine also, then he can get the particular alternative medicine to this. So currently I don't know, it is not coming, but the alternative medicine to the pains can also prescribe from the doctors. From the surgical, for any surgery has been made to the patient, then this can also be captured. So this is specifically filtered from the procedure hierarchy and specific to the parent of surgical procedure hierarchy. So splendectomy is a procedure that can be performed on VAVEX malaria diagnosis. So if you select the particular procedure, then the site, the method, and the device is auto-filled. So if you want to give a laterality, give, otherwise you can skip it. So this is how the pre-filled you can get the attributes of each SNOMED CT concepts. If that particular SNOMED CT concept has the fully defined, then probably you can directly integrate. So it will ease the doctor's integration or the doctor's data entry time in very quick or the user friendly way. So from this you can generate the prescription where all the details that are captured or comes over here. For our Indian audiences, we have translated the dose form, route of administration, and the patient instructions in our local languages. So for the different local language, doctors can prescribe this particular and download the prescription and give it to the patient. So so for this particular language is a Tamil language. So if you select this, then it is captured in the Tamil language and doctors can prescribe and give a printout to the patients again. And also the FHIR bundle also we have integrated in the e-prescription resources for our national program, which is called as Ayushman Bharat Digital Health Mission. So through that, the FHIR bundles can also be downloaded, and if the patient can, the prescription record can be shared through that, that can be shared. So this is how the overall, the demonstration, which we generally show during our training. Once we provide the domain training and the toolkit part, then obviously every integrator wants to know how exactly any healthcare application looks like once you integrate the SNOMED CT. So for this, we have designed this, and this is not this is only a front page and the API integration. There is no database and other stuff at the back end, just to show how the UI or the user friendliness of the SNOMED CT integrated application looks like. I hope this is informative and gets a lot of insights about how the SNOMED CT can be integrated beautifully to get all the benefits of SNOMED CT from all the components, concept description, and its relationships, and integrate in any applications. And I am really sorry for the service that is disturbed me and for you as well a lot during this demonstration. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Achyut. It was excellent presentation. So I think we can do some questions now. Any questions for, or maybe, yeah. You can do it in Thai.
ฮัลโหลครับเมื่อกี้นี้เป็น demonstration ผมเพิ่งได้ข้อมูลผมก็คือเพิ่งเห็นครั้งแรกเนี่ยแล้วก็ผมก็รู้สึก amaze มากเลยเขาสามารถ implement SNOMED ไว้ทุกฟิลที่เขาต้องการซึ่งมันมากเกินไปด้วยซ้ำจริงๆเราไม่ต้องimplement SNOMED ทุก hierarchy ในทุกอันนะแต่ว่าอันนี้เนี่ยหน่วยที่เขาทำเรื่องนี้เนี่ยเป็นเพราะว่าพอเขาเป็นสมาชิกเมื่อ3-4 ปีที่แล้ว แล้วก็พวก EMR vendor บอกว่ามันทำไม่ได้หรอกมันวุ่นวายมันยากอะไรอย่างเงี้ยครับหน่วยที่เรียกว่าชื่อ CDEC ก็เป็นเหมือนกับคล้ายๆNettex ประเทศไทยอะครับแต่ว่าเป็นเขาดูซูเปอร์คอมพิวเตอร์ดูเรื่องอวกาศด้วยอะไรอย่างนี้นะครับหน่วยงานนั้นนะเขาเลยพัฒนา EMR ให้ดูว่ามันทำได้นั่นคือตัวอย่างที่เห็นถึงเขาพัฒนาว่าถ้าเราจะพัฒนา EMR เนี่ยมันทำได้นะครับเบื้องหลังเมื่อกี้นี้เนี่ยก็คือที่เขาบอกเซอร์วิสเนี่ยเวลาคีย์เข้าไปเนี่ยมันไปเรียกที่เขาเรียกว่าแอปพลิเคชันอันหนึ่งที่เรียกว่า terminology server ก็คือ SNOMED อยู่ในเซิร์ฟเวอร์นั้นอยู่ในเซอร์วิสนั้นนะครับแล้วมันก็ให้เซอร์วิสมัน call API ไปแล้วมันก็เอากลับมาเป็น text ที่เห็นนี่นะครับเพราะฉะนั้นจริงๆเนี่ยอันนั้นนี่เป็น demonstration นะครับที่อินเดียทำแล้วก็ตอนนี้ถ้าหลายโรงพยาบาลจะซื้อ EMR ของอินเดียเนี่ยเขาก็มักจะบอกว่าเขาเป็น SNOMED enable ก็หมายถึงว่าเขาก็สามารถจะโชว์ได้แต่มันอยู่ที่ว่าแต่ละ EMR เนี่ยเขา implement ยังไงนะครับก็ต้องขอบคุณทางฝั่ง SNOMED International ได้ติดต่อทางฝั่ง CDEC มา Thank you very much Are you still there?
Yeah I'm
Okay thank you sir I just talk in Thai explain about the capability and we are very impressed on that so thank you and then มีใครอยากจะถามทางฝั่งอินเดียไหมครับหรือว่าทางวิทยากรเมื่อเช้าเลยนะครับ
Dr. Punchai, so we have one question from our MC. So she was a former medical technologist, right? And she asked, like, what we have seen before is more like a HIS, which has the SNOMED as a background, right? What outcome, like better outcome, can we expect from if we move to use the SNOMED as our background in our system as well?
So the question is for India or for us?
For us, if we move to use the SNOMED.
จริงๆคนถามเป็นภาษาไทยเนาะว่าจะได้ยังไงก็ตอนนี้ในประเทศไทยนะครับอย่างน้อยๆ procedure กำลังจะถูก implement โดยใช้ SNOMED CT พวกเราอยู่โรงพยาบาลเราสนใจเงินน่ะไม่งั้นถ้าเกิดมันไปโค้ดแล้วเป็นเงินไม่ได้เนี่ยมันก็ไม่มีประโยชน์นะครับแต่เราเห็น capacity แล้วถ้าเรา data collection เป็น SNOMED มันแมปเข้าไปเป็น ICD-10 ICD-10 อยู่เบื้องหลังได้อยู่แล้วนะครับปัญหาตอนนี้ก็คือว่า ICD-9 CM ที่เราใช้อยู่ตอนนี้เนี่ยมันไม่มีคำบรรยายที่เพียงพอเพราะฉะนั้นฝั่งเบิกจ่ายเนี่ยเขาก็บอกว่ามันจะเพิ่มลิสต์ของของ procedure ได้ยังไงนะครับตอนนี้เนี่ยเขาในนี้ก็กรมบัญชีกลางประกันสังคมแล้วก็ประกันสังคมแล้วก็สปสช.ก็รู้สึกจะพิจารณาแล้วว่าจริงๆเนี่ยสำหรับ procedure อื่นๆที่มันซับซ้อนขึ้นอย่างแรกผมเข้าใจว่าหลายโรงพยาบาลก็จะเห็น robotics นะครับตอนนี้ robotics ก็จะมีโค้ดที่เป็น SNOMED แล้วต่อไปก็จะเป็น endoscopic นะครับแล้วก็ต่อไปก็จะเป็นprocedure ทั้งหมดนะครับเท่าที่ผมฟังนโยบายจากอาจารย์สุประสิทธิ์ซึ่งจะบอกว่าถ้าข้อมูลกลับมาใน 2-3 ปีเนี่ยก็จะเอาไปคำนวณ DRG ได้แม่นขึ้นกว่าเดิมนะครับเพราะว่าเรารู้รายละเอียดว่าเป็นแบบไหนราคาเนี่ยเป็นยังไงนะครับก็อันนี้คือสิ่งที่ประเทศไทยจะได้แต่ว่าอย่างน้อยๆที่เราเห็นเมื่อเช้าเกี่ยวกับเรื่อง Analytics เนี่ยก็อย่างชัดเจนนะครับพอดีเมื่อกี้ทางอาจารย์ทางเขต12คุยกับเราเรื่องจะไปใช้จะลองใช้ SNOMED นี่ทำได้ยังไงเมื่อเช้าที่เขาโชว์เบราว์เซอร์นี่มันอยู่ในเว็บนะครับคุณเซิร์ช SNOMED Browser มันก็ขึ้นมาเลยลองใช้ได้เลยลองเล่นได้เลยนะครับมันอยู่บนเว็บแต่ทีนี้การที่เราเป็นสมาชิกนี่ก็คือว่าเราสามารถใช้ Database หรือว่าฐานข้อมูลของ SNOMED ซึ่งมี 300,000 กว่าคอนเซปต์มีซินโนนิมได้ทั้งประเทศโดยไม่ต้องเสียค่าไม่ต้องไปเสียค่าไลเซนส์ของ Affiliate License รวมทั้งเรื่องอะไรล่ะออนไลน์คอร์สครับถ้าออนไลน์คอร์สประเทศไม่ได้เป็นสมาชิกอย่างสมมุติเราจะไปเรียนเกี่ยวกับเรื่อง implementation ก็400 เหรียญ US ดอลลาร์แต่ว่าถ้าเราเป็นสมาชิกเขา detect ว่าเป็น IP ของประเทศไทยก็เป็น0ก็หมายถึงว่าเราอยากจะไปเรียนก็ไปเรียนมี resource เยอะแยะนะที่ให้ไปนะครับแต่นี้ผมทางเมื่อกี้มีพูด IPS นะครับ International Patient Summary จริงๆเนี่ย IPS เป็น product ที่ HL7 International ทำงานร่วมกับ SNOMED International คือ format เป็น HL7 file แต่เนื้อในเป็น SNOMED CT หมายถึงว่าตัว coding เนี่ยเป็น SNOMED CT ประเทศไทยตอนนี้มีโปรเจกต์ใหญ่ที่เกี่ยวกับเรื่องการทำให้เกิด International Summary สำหรับคนที่ไปฮัจญ์นะครับแล้วก็มาเลเซียอินเดียอินโดนีเซียมาเลเซียก็ทำแล้วก็ตอนนี้นี่เราก็คุยกับเขต12ว่าเราน่าจะเริ่มทำสำหรับประเทศไทยที่จะแลกเปลี่ยนข้อมูลคนไข้เราที่ไปฮัจญ์ที่นู่นได้นะครับก็อันนี้ก็เพียงแต่เล่าให้ฟังนะเพราะฉะนั้นสรุปว่าจะได้ประโยชน์ยังไงก็ได้ประโยชน์อย่างที่เมื่อเช้าที่ได้เห็นนะครับแล้วก็ผมเล่าโปรเจกต์ให้ฟังอีกอันนึงท่านอาจจะงงนิดหน่อย TMT ก็เป็นรหัสที่สมสทพัฒนาถูกไหมครับที่ตอนนี้ท่านใช้อยู่ในการเบิกจ่ายในการทำ EGP TMT ก็ถ้าจะพูดไปจริงๆมันก็คือยาภายใน SNOMED นี่แหละครับเป็น extension แต่เพราะเรากลับหัวเราพัฒนา TMT โดยไปเรียนโมเดลเขาโดยที่เรายังไม่เป็นสมาชิกแล้วตอนหลังเนี่ยเราเป็นสมาชิกเพราะฉะนั้นตอนนี้เนี่ยมันก็อยู่ในเขาเรียกอะไรไพป์ไลน์เดียวกันนะครับว่าอยู่เป็นเรื่องเป็น international standard เดียวกันนะครับมีคำถามอะไรไหมครับ
Okay, so we have one more question from our online participants from Dr. Prapat. He asked if we have created our own extension like TMT and there is a newly release of international SNOMED that has the same concept that we created in our extension. What is the protocol of SNOMED to deal with this?
What is what?
The protocol to deal with the same concept that we created.
Dr. Rat, would you like to answer those? Rat is here. Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so this is Anna. When you create an extension to SNOMED CT, it is what it says, an extension, and you can choose to keep it in your content in that extension. But as also correctly stated, that poses a risk that if you're creating a concept in your extension, there may be concept added in the international edition that is overlapping. So if there is already a concept created that is overlapping, then the advice is that you inactivate the one in your extension and you point to the new active international one. Mostly because that will reduce the effort from the owner of the extension in the ongoing maintenance of those components. And there are mechanisms to that pointing I'm talking about to the new active concept, so that can be done. Another thing is that if you have an extension and there is content in your extension you believe is applicable internationally, so you may have created very good content in your extension and other countries want to use that, well, there is the ability to promote. The benefit of promoting content from an extension into the international edition is that those identifiers that are created will be pushed into the international edition so that implementers can continue to use those identifiers. But in essence, there is the means to do both. So irrespective of the situation, which I don't expect that we know right now because it would require us to look at the content in the TMT extension, but there are means.
Okay. Yeah. ผมเข้าใจคำถามแล้วที่อาจารย์ประภัสถามนะครับอาจารย์ถามว่าโปรโตคอลสำหรับทำ extension เป็นยังไงตัวอย่างของ extension เช่นเราใช้ศัพท์ภาษาไทยแล้วเราก็ create identifier เป็น สำหรับคำพูดไทยเช่นหัวใจกล้ามเนื้อหัวใจขาดเลือดเราบอกว่าเราจะเอาศัพท์คำนี้เป็นซินโนนิมกับ myocardial infarction เราสามารถจะ create extension ภาษาของเราได้อันนี้ก็เป็นอันหนึ่งนะครับหรือว่ามีคอนเซปต์ใหม่ซึ่งเราคิดว่าประเทศอื่นไม่มีใน international เราก็บอกว่าไอ้คอนเซปต์นี้เนี่ยเราจะ create เราเองโปรโตคอลก็คือว่าสมสทตอนนี้ทำหน้าที่เป็น National Release Center เราจะประสานงานกับ SNOMED International เพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยก็ติดต่อมานะครับแล้วเราก็มาดูด้วยกันว่าเราอยากจะ create extension ยังไงที่เป็นอย่างนี้ได้เนี่ยเป็นเพราะว่าทุกประเทศก็จะมีเขาเรียกว่า name space หรือว่า identifier ซึ่งอยู่ในโค้ดของ identify ของ SNOMED identifier ที่บอกว่าเป็น extension ของประเทศไทยนะครับเราก็จะใช้ไอ้ตัวนี้เป็นตัว identifier ว่าเราเป็นของประเทศไทยแต่ว่าเราก็มีมีวิธีการที่จะ create extension ตามที่ประเทศไทยเนี่ยต้องการอย่างที่เราเห็นของหลายประเทศเขาก็มี extension ของเขางั้นที่ผมพูดว่า TMT เป็น SNOMED extension โดยเรายังไม่ได้ใส่ name space เข้าไปเท่านั้นเองแล้วเราก็ต้องไปตรวจสอบกับpharmaceutical product ใน SNOMED International ซึ่งออสเตรเลียเมื่อก่อนเขามี AMT Australian Medicine Terminology แล้วก็ต่อมาเขาก็ปรับให้สอดคล้องกับ SNOMED CT แล้วก็ตอนนี้เนี่ยภายใน SNOMED CT SNOMED AU นะครับออสเตรเลียก็จะมียาซึ่งเป็นที่ใช้ในประเทศของออสเตรเลียอยู่ในนั้นด้วยอันนี้ก็เป็นโปรโตคอลที่ใช้ว่าเราจะทำ extension ได้ยังไงครับวันพรุ่งนี้เราจะมีตัวอย่างที่จะใช้หมอนัทซึ่งเป็นนักเรียนปริญญาเอกเนี่ยก็ทำศัพท์ภาษาไทยเราเอาเวชระเบียนมาแล้วก็มาดูว่าศัพท์ภาษาไทยที่เราใช้กันบ่อยๆเนี่ยเป็นยังไงเราเรียกว่าterminology ภาษาไทยเราอาจจะจากไอ้ตรงเนี้ยเราก็ทำเป็น extension แล้วก็บอกว่ามีศัพท์ภาษาไทยเป็นของประเทศไทยเนี่ยได้ยังไงด้วยครับก็เลยมา2 นาทีแต่ว่าผมอยากให้ถามครับทำไมน่าจะถามเพราะว่าเขาอยู่กับเราอีกพรุ่งนี้อีกวันหนึ่งนะครับ2 วันแล้วก็เป็นโอกาสที่ดีผมอยากให้เผื่อมีคำถามเกี่ยวกับเรื่อง SNOMEDที่ลึกซึ้งกว่าที่เราจะตอบสมสทจะตอบได้นี่เขาจะได้ช่วยเล่าให้ฟังนะครับมีไหมครับครับโอเคขอบคุณมาก you can ask in English I know that you are better than asking in Thai language
Hello, my name is Tanupat. I'm from King Chulalongkorn Memorial Hospital, the data department. We'd like to ask whether the new TMT course that will be the extension of the SNOMED CT, is it like an intentional extension that use the logic of the SNOMED CT, or is just the new terms that added into the SNOMED CT? Because we have problems with like LOIS to SNOMED CT, and I'll use the new SNOMED ID that was linked with the existed terms in the SNOMED.
I will explain like this one. I said that Thai medicine terminology TMT is SNOMED extension in terms of the rule and data model. We use the principle and the data model from SNOMED CT, but we create our own code. So TMT and description is our own code used in Thailand. Other country will not recognizing it. What I mean is that if we want to do like the fully integrate as we call the SNOMEDization, we will create a SNOMED ID which has the namespace with Thailand and those will map one-to-one map with our own TMT code. That is the mechanism that we are going to do in there. In terms of the fully specified name, the description, we will have to align with both. So the mechanism is similar to the UK. The UK before they have the DM plus D as the drug and device identifier, and later they migrate the DM plus D into the SNOMED CT. We will do the similar process right there.
Just to support that, exactly. This is a known pattern that you go from a national dictionary to a SNOMED extension. And then sometimes you add your description to an existing concept, and sometimes you create a new concept. And there's like a process for that, an experience from different countries, because Ireland is doing the same, Australia is doing the same, Argentina, Uruguay, the US is trying to transform RX norm to SNOMED. So it's a common process. And Anna has another.
And I think, so if I were you, that would trigger some thoughts in my head, like, but why? If we have TMT, why do we then need to go through a migration into a SNOMED extension? And I think there are many aspects there. There is about the maintenance aspect. So if you start to create an extension where the majority of the content is true international content, then it lies on the international, SNOMED International to do the maintenance. And you will have your terminology readily available all the time, and it will reduce the efforts required nationally. Another thing is the services that you will also learn more about tomorrow, the ability to query and analyze. SNOMED CT comes with a computable language, making it easy to query and analyze. If you keep things in a TMT, a separate coding system, all those features you would have to establish yourself. Well, here it will be given by open source tooling that support these kinds of use cases that you are going to implement, so that you nationally can spend the effort on doing the proper implementation and just using the resources that are used. And a third option is, of course, that you would be able to or a third benefit is that you will be able to communicate and share across Thailand and outside Thailand.
ผมอธิบายอีกนิดหนึ่งนะครับว่า SNOMED CT มีเขาเขียนโปรแกรมที่เรียกว่า Snowstorm ก็คือเป็น terminology server service ที่ให้ service เดิม Snowstorm รับได้แค่ SNOMED CT แต่ปัจจุบันเนี้ย Snowstorm เนี่ยเราสามารถจะใส่โค้ดซิสเต็มอื่นๆเนี่ยเข้าไปได้เช่น TMT ICDเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ย SNOWSTORM จะสามารถให้ API สำหรับไม่ว่าจะเป็น SNOMED TMT หรือ ICD เนี่ยได้เพราะเมื่อวานนี้เราพูดเรื่องเทคนิคลงเรื่องไปเทคนิคเรื่อง terminology server and service ซึ่งจริงๆเนี่ยถ้าสนใจก็ติดต่อมาเพราะเมื่อวานนี้เป็น more technical วันนี้เป็น more generic สำหรับ audience สำหรับผู้บริหารอย่างเช่นท่านผู้ตรวจจากเขต12จากผู้อำนวยการเพราะฉะนั้นมันก็เลยไม่ได้พูดรายละเอียดตรงนั้นนะครับแต่ว่าterminology server ตอนนี้ก็มี open source ก็คือ SNOWSTORM แล้วตอนนี้เขามี SNOWSTORM Lite ซึ่งเร็วกว่าแล้วก็แต่ว่าไม่ได้รวมไม่สามารถใส่โค้ดซิสเต็มอื่นๆไปได้อันนี้ก็เป็นอีกอันหนึ่งที่ผมคิดว่า developer หรือว่าจะเอาไปใช้แล้วเอาไปพัฒนาต่อได้นะครับโดยสรุปก็คือว่าเรามีหลายโค้ดซิสเต็มถ้าเรามี terminology server ตอนนี้ก็มี open source ที่เราสามารถที่จะใส่ได้หลายโค้ดซิสเต็มครับขอบคุณมากหมอตังที่ถามนะครับจริงๆผมว่ามีเป็นน่าสนใจมีคำถามแบบแอดมินก็ได้ครับแบบผู้บริหารก็ได้ครับ อาจารย์วินมีคำถามไหมครับ เรามีท่านผอกรมการแพทย์ผอไอทีกรมการแพทย์อยู่
ครับก็ต้องขอบคุณอาจารย์ครับจริงๆกรมการแพทย์ก็แพลนว่าจะ implement แต่ก็ยังรู้จากอาจารย์ว่าเริ่มมี tool open tool แต่จริงจะถามอาจารย์ว่าตอนนี้เราสามารถใช้ได้มีลิขสิทธิ์ใช้ได้แล้วใช่ไหมครับ
โอเค
ลิขสิทธิ์
หมายถึง tools หรือว่าฐานข้อมูล
ทั้งสองอันแล้วครับคือ tool กับตัวลิขสิทธิ์ของ SNOMED ตอนนี้เราเป็นสมาชิกแล้วก็ใช้ได้ทั้งประเทศได้ทางถูกต้องไหมครับ
ครับ may I go to the browser เราเป็นสมาชิกมา2 ปีแล้วจริงๆเนี่ยมันเปิดให้ได้ใช้ทั้งประเทศมา2 ปีแล้วแต่ผมต้องขอโทษว่าไม่ได้ประชาสัมพันธ์ว่าต้องคิดอย่างนี้ SNOMED CT เนี่ยเป็นฐานข้อมูลใหญ่นะครับฐานข้อมูลใหญ่เนี่ยถ้าเกิดเราพัฒนาเป็นเราไปดูฐานข้อมูลนั้นมาแล้วก็มาใส่ใน terminology server แล้วก็ให้บริการแบบที่เราเห็นในเบราว์เซอร์อื่นๆเนี่ยได้เลยเป็นมา2 ปีแล้วครับเพราะฉะนั้น ส่วน tool อื่นๆเช่น Open Tool เนี่ยเขามีเยอะแยะไปหมดนะครับเราสามารถใช้ได้เลยทีนี้สำหรับคนที่ยังไม่ทราบนะครับว่าสมมุติว่าตอนนี้เนี่ยการที่เราเป็นสมาชิกแล้วก็สมสทเป็นคนที่เป็น National Release Center เนี่ยเรามีฐานข้อมูลแล้วเราอัปเดตฐานข้อมูล SNOMED CT ทุกเดือนนะครับวิธีที่จะเอาฐานข้อมูลนั้นเนี่ยแล้วเอาไปพัฒนาเองเอาไปดูเองก็ได้อย่างนี้นะครับI'll go to my MLDS. I'm talking about the MLDS. Okay.
Can I say something before this?
Yeah.
Just to support that, yes, Thailand is indeed a member. And the thing about our members, so you've seen we have 50 members. And the way SNOMED International is governed is that when you are a member, you're not just licensed to use SNOMED, you own SNOMED. You are an owner of SNOMED as well as Denmark, Sweden, US, England, and all the other members. And it's the member country that steer the direction of SNOMED. And that is quite important because you have an ability now to influence the way that direction that SNOMED goes. So if you have requirements for the terminology, you can engage in the groups and the community. We are really a community-driven organization. And there's many groups, so if you have a special clinical domain, we may have a clinical interest group where you can engage with others implementing SNOMED CT within your domain and learn from their experiences, and they can learn from you. So yes, please do reach out to us as an organization if you are interested in specific areas or domains, because we really strongly encourage you as implementers and users to engage with us.
ครับก็ เป็นอินดิวิวดัลก็ได้เป็นโรงพยาบาลก็ได้เป็นบริษัทก็ได้เป็นอะไรก็ได้นะครับถ้าอยากจะใช้ฐานข้อมูลดาวน์โหลดฐานข้อมูล SNOMED CT ไปเข้าไปที่นี่นะครับ MLDS ก็คือ Member License and Distribution Service นะครับเซิร์ชในใน Google ก็ได้ MLDS เนี่ยนะครับแล้วมันเข้าไปหน้านี้นะครับหน้านี้เนี่ยแล้วก็ของประเทศไทยเห็นไหมครับเนี่ยเราคลิกของประเทศไทยนะครับก็ลงไป Register เลยครับ Register เสร็จแล้วเนี่ยท่านพอข้อมูลจะเข้าไปที่สมสทก็จะเช็คว่ามันไม่ซ้ำกันเป็นยังไงแล้วเราก็จะให้Affiliate License แล้วก็ในพอเข้าไปในพอผมจำไม่ได้ว่าผมต้องมันเข้าไปใน MLDS ที่เป็นฐานของประเทศไทยเนี่ยเราจะมีอัปเดตของ SNOMED ทุกเดือนน่ะเอาไปดาวน์โหลดได้เลยครับแล้วก็จริงๆเราใส่มาตรฐานอื่นๆเข้าไปในส่วนคือเขาให้ห้องเราห้องหนึ่งที่เราจะรีลีสนะครับเราก็จะได้เลยงั้นสรุปก็คือสมัครไปนะครับแล้วก็พอท่านได้ไลเซนส์ท่านก็ล็อกอินเข้าไปใน MLDS นี่แหละครับแล้วท่านก็จะไปถึงฐานข้อมูลแล้วก็เข้าไปได้ในทุกเซอร์วิสที่เขาให้บริการครับ โดยสรุปก็คือเขาเพียงแต่ขอว่าเรามีลิสต์ของ affiliate license ว่าเราใช้ได้เท่านั้นนะครับแต่ว่าตอนนี้เราอยู่ในประเทศไทยถึงแม้ว่าเราจะไม่เอาฐานข้อมูลไปใช้เราก็เข้าไปใช้ได้แล้วเขาก็ถือว่ามันเป็นของทุกคนนะครับ
ครับถ้างั้นถ้าสปสท.สามารถจะจัดstarter course สำหรับทีมโปรแกรมเมอร์หรืออะไรที่จะเอาไปอินทิเกรตใช้กับซอฟต์แวร์เลยได้ไหมแต่ถ้ากรมแพทย์อาจจะหางบบางส่วนมาช่วยแล้วเราก็ช่วยกันจัดเหมือนกับลงไปเลยได้ไหมครับอาจารย์
ได้ครับคือหลังจากการที่ประชุมวันนี้เสร็จแล้วเนี่ยเราวางแผนว่าเราจะประชุมอีกสัก1 ถึง 2 ครั้งนะครับเป็นภาษาไทยแล้วก็มาช่วยกันจัดโปรแกรมก็ได้ครับเพราะเอิญงวดนี้เนี่ยเราจัดจริงๆเนี่ยมีโปรแกรมอยู่สำหรับผู้บริหารก็คือวันนี้กับวันพรุ่งนี้นะครับแล้วก็มีสำหรับimplementer แล้วก็ vendor ก็คือเมื่อวานนี้จริงๆเนี่ยเราควรจะคุยกันวันนี้ก่อนนะครับแล้วก็วันที่30ควรจะเป็นสำหรับ technical แต่ปรากฏว่าเวลามันไม่พอดีครับผมเลยต้องย้ายจากไอ้ technical มาไว้เมื่อวานนี้ผมเข้าใจว่าน่าจะมีคนจากกรมการแพทย์มาเพราะเราเชิญไปมีทั้งพวกเมื่อวานมี Hot XP เราเชิญ H Lab เราเชิญหลายทั้งเวนเดอร์แล้วก็ทั้งโรงพยาบาลแล้วก็มีหลายอันเนี่ยเข้ามาเมื่อวานนี้นะครับเมื่อวานลงดีฟไปจนถึงให้เห็นเลยว่าจะ install Snowstorm ยังไงจะเอาไปใช้แบบไหนนะครับเมื่อวานนะครับได้แต่นี้ยินดีครับอาจารย์ครับว่าถ้าอาจารย์บอกว่าเราจะร่วมกันจัดลงไปในรายละเอียด
ครับเพราะว่าเพิ่นกรมแพทย์ดูเรื่องสวิตแพนแล้วก็ทำกับอาจารย์ลักษณ์อยู่ในการทำโคดดิ้งของ HL7 คราวนี้ก็เราบอกว่าขยาย HL7 อย่างเดียวมาเป็น SNOMED ด้วยดีไหมแล้วก็ค่อยคุมสวิตแพนแล้วก็เดี๋ยวจะหางบมาเพิ่มให้
เมื่อวานนี้จริงๆเราพูดความ2 อันระหว่าง HL7 Fire กับ SNOMED มันเป็นเรื่องเดียวกันเผอิญวันนี้นี่เราเน้นที่ SNOMED เพราะว่ามันเป็นไส้ในเมื่อวานแอนเล่าให้ฟังถึงเรื่อง information model แล้วก็ terminology model วันนี้คงไม่มีเวลา พรุ่งนี้ can you talk a little bit about the terminology model and information model for the tomorrow morning?
Yes, we'll make sure tomorrow to add some of the parts from our session yesterday and also show you. So before you start to make national groups, which I think is excellent and what you also should do, but we also have online training resources to get you started with this. So you don't have to wait until you have settled. You can actually use our online step-by-step guidance to get started. But yes, we'll cover SNOMED and FIRE information models tomorrow as well.
I think เราเกินมา18 นาทีโอเคเผอิญการประชุมของเราเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของการประชุมของสวรสนะครับตอนบ่ายโมงก็จะเป็นการเปิดแล้วรัฐมนตรีช่วยจะมาเปิดนะครับแล้วทานอาหารเสร็จเซสชั่นพรุ่งนี้เช้าก็จะต่อจากเซสชั่นวันนี้นะครับแต่อย่างที่ผมโฆษณาไปนะครับพรุ่งนี้เช้ายังเป็น SNOMED International แต่พรุ่งนี้บ่ายเป็นเราชวนพวกที่ในประเทศไทยทั้งโรงพยาบาลทั้งเวนเดอร์ที่ implement SNOMED เข้าไปในระบบของเขาแล้วหรือลองใช้แล้วเนี่ยมาเล่าให้ฟังว่าเป็นยังไงคล้ายๆกับของที่เราเห็นของอินเดียนะครับงั้นท่านก็จะได้ถามด้วยว่าปัญหามันอยู่ตรงไหนทำไมเราจะทำแบบนี้ได้หรือเปล่านะครับครับก็ต้องขอบคุณมาก
ค่ะก็ขอบคุณทุกท่านนะคะสำหรับการประชุมในวันนี้ก็เดี๋ยวตอนเช้าเราจะจบกันเพียงเท่านี้นะคะแล้วก็อาหารค่ะจะเสิร์ฟทางด้านนอกนะคะส่วนอาหารอิสลามแล้วก็อาหารเจค่ะจะเป็นห้องแกรนด์บอลลูมชั้น4นะคะส่วนตอนบ่ายให้ไปเจอกันที่พิธีเปิดนะคะจะอยู่ที่ชั้น4ค่ะแล้วก็พรุ่งนี้เช้าเรากลับมาที่ห้องนี้นะคะก็ก่อนออกไปเดี๋ยวรบกวนปรบมือให้ทางวิทยากรจาก SNOMED International ด้วยนะคะ Thank you so much for SNOMED International team for presentation today and see you tomorrow. ขอบคุณทุกท่านค่ะก่อนออกไปนะคะเดี๋ยวรบกวนท่านไหนที่ใช้ translator คืนด้านนอกด้วยนะคะเดี๋ยวพรุ่งนี้เราค่อยมายืมใหม่นะคะแต่ว่าของวันนี้ให้คืนก่อนนะคะค่ะขอบคุณค่ะบ่ายนี้จะเป็นพิธีเปิดงานนะคะจะไม่มีการบรรยายเกี่ยวกับ SNOMED แล้วนะคะการบรรยายจะมีอีกครั้งหนึ่งพรุ่งนี้ทั้งวันนะคะ